Alrighty, hello and welcome to the Creedcast, not the Greedcast. Thank you for joining us once again, as we are very excited to be here with you discussing. I don't want to quite say a historic win because it is a regular season win, but your Port Adelaide Footy Club, after a week of many questions, negative discourse, all the fun that goes with supporting this club at times, decided just to wander down to Kardinia Park, the Cattery, the GMHBA Stadium, whatever you know it as, and get a win at the home of the 2022 Premier. The one loss going into the game, Geelong Cats 15-11, 101 to 14-11, 95. Our first win down there at the start of the Surf Coast since 2007. Blew them out of the water early and then held on as Geelong tactically subbed their way back into the game, made their runs into the game, had a little bit of luck with some junk time, with us having a case of the junk times against again, as well as a little run of some fortuitous umpiring decisions. But we held on, and to paraphrase Tom Jonas at the end of the showdown in 2021 when we scraped over the line there, a win at Kardinia Park is a win at Kardinia Park. Fuck yeah. Jamie, I think you and I are probably a little bit surprised to be so happy going into this review. We're stoked about it, but I don't think too many expected this win.
No, hey Dave, hey everyone. Thanks for tuning in and watching on YouTube if that's your proclivity. No, a week is a very, very, very long time in football, as the cliche generally goes. And as we previewed the Geelong game, I put it out there that I didn't expect to win. I don't think many people did. I tipped Geelong as my win-win scenario. Obviously, they win, I get the tip. We win, Port win. Everyone's happy. Yeah, very happy. Like I've said to you and many others, I've been punching air pretty consistently since Friday night. Yeah, a rousing win. Made it tough for ourselves, like you mentioned, in the end. But as Vin Diesel said in Fast and the Furious, along the lines of a win is a win, whether it's by an inch or a mile. So we take the 4 points and we look forward towards the bye.
Granny shift and not double clutching like you should. We just watched that the other day, actually. Andrea was
Yeah,
just like,
right.
just threw it on, and we've started a watch through of them again. So
yeah. I'm pretty comfortable with any pop culture reference that'll come up that you'll be fairly in tune with it. So yeah, I'm glad you had that extra little bit to go on the end.
I rate that one for you. And speaking of pop culture things, I didn't know you were going to bring that up, but I have, just for a little bit of fun before we dive into it, I just thought, because I was just like, there's been so much time, like 17 years since we won down at Kardinia Park. I wanted to do a dive. I did this actually as a personal thing, but then I was like, this is just a fun thing to bring up on the podcast. I was going to spend a minute here going through some things that were happening at that time in 2007. So we won, like, that win was 26th of August, 2007. Obviously, the famous Don Casisi goal with 25 seconds to go or something like that. Won't talk about what happened after that. But the number one movie in the United States at that time was Superbad. In Australia, it was No Reservations, which is like Catherine Zeta-Jones, Aaron Eckhart. I've seen Superbad a lot, haven't seen No Reservations.
They mentioned an Adelaide Hills wine, I think, or Barossa Valley wine in that movie.
I should probably watch it then.
Just on another side. Yeah.
The iPhone had released in the United States, but we were still 10 months away from seeing it here. It didn't release here until mid-2008, so it was like Nokia was still king. The number one album in Australia was, and this is just like flashback to when Australian Idol was king on Australian TV. Damien Leith's debut studio album, The Irishman, that won 2006, was number one when we beat the Cats the last time down there.
Oh, for any Hamish and Andy listeners, that's a name you should use for the segment. People I haven't thought of in a while or this year. Damien Leith. Wow.
I spent like 5 minutes on his wiki after that because I was like, where has he been? He's still got, I think he's released like 6 or 7 albums. I'm like, fuck, I wouldn't know since then. Even I forgot that he even released that one. So, the illegal war in Iraq had reached its 4th year, which is there's a bit more of a bummer of a memory. But I thought it was interesting too because Call of Duty 4 Modern Warfare released in 2007, which started that whole series, which I feel like was like an idea of like where the world and what people were thinking about was at, considering the wars and everything like that. The most recent Super Bowl champion was the Indianapolis Colts for Peyton Manning's first ring. He's been retired for a while now and had a long career. Shout out and an apology to Ryan Dengle, friend of the pod. based in Chicago. He's a Chicago Bears fan, and that's who lost
Yeah.
that Super Bowl. San Antonio Spurs beat a young LeBron James in his first final appearance. He's had 50 finals appearance since then. Boston Red Sox are on their way to a second World Series win, and my Anaheim Ducks won their first Stanley Cup. Had to throw that one in there.
Go
Um,
Ducks.
Ducks. New Mexico made it a state law in 2007 that Pluto is still a planet whenever it flies over the state. That one blew my mind. Kevin Rudd was voted in as PM. MySpace was the king of social media.
Kevin
The big
07, yeah.
Kevin '07, yeah. I was wondering if I remember the. You remember the shirts?
Yeah,
Like
absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah.
Um, oh, good times. Yeah, Kevin Rudd voted in. Big Bang Theory and Keeping Up with the Kardashians premiered. Nintendo Wii dropped, and the final Harry Potter book was released, and no one knew J.K. Rowling was a gigantic thunder cunt yet. Whew. We didn't start the fire. So yeah, hopefully that gives everyone an idea of just how long it's been, how like
And
just
Travis Spoke was in game 10, as
yes, yeah.
everyone
To
already
bring it
knows
back to
now.
the bring it back
Yeah.
to the topic on hand. But yeah,
So,
it's
yeah.
and they brought it someone I think the AFL actually posted like how many or someone else posted how many times teams have played down there and like we play a fair bit down there and
Yeah, I saw that
we
ladder.
yeah.
Yeah.
Some teams like Collingwood don't, which is interesting since they only have a couple of hours to go. But
They
um,
make Geelong go to the MCG.
it's just so dumb. I sympathise with Geelong fans on that one. I don't sympathise with them much sometimes because they've had plenty of success. But yeah, it's always a weird one. But
That's the
yeah,
stat padding of the AFL in terms of attendance numbers and money made,
exactly.
instead
Yeah,
of purity of football.
yeah. But they'll tell you everything's good. It's everything that's good for the game, but it's really just good for the pockets. But regardless of that, we had to go there again, but this time we win in a place that hasn't given it. We've had some close games there over the past few years. I was down there for
Mm.
the Charlie Dixon. I think I mentioned in the preview. I was down there for the
Yeah, yeah, you did. Yeah,
Charlie Dixon,
last
but
year's game.
and yeah, last year's game as well. But yeah, it was. I guess starting off, we'll get into the end of the game and some of the things that happened. But overall, just as you said, with the Vin Diesel quote from Fast and Furious, if we just gone in knowing that at the end of the game we win, who cares how it happens? If we have to kick away as we did and then hold off a run, or if we have to do the comeback, or if it's just a tight tussle, if you just gone into the game and say we win by 6 points, every single Port fan. There is not one single Port fan that would say, "Oh no, I'd like it to be a little bit classier." No, we would all just be like, "Nah, fuck it, we'll take it." Like so, when you think about it that way, you just go,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And
Well,
it's,
and like, you know, Port fans who have their perspectives, and even got fans from across the road, Crows fans, Geelong fans in the aftermath, they're kind of, having a bit of a dig at the whole points turnaround, but all the professionals kind of don't really factor that into their assessment.
mm,
There's two things that Geelong rarely ever do, especially across the last 10, but 20 years.
mm,
That's lose two in a row and lose at home. We mentioned that it's just an objective fact about how hard it is to win at Kardinia Park. And for a team that was second and is still second after being, I can't remember the margin at halftime, but, being 49 points down,
mm,
excuse me, Geelong were only going to do one thing, and that was put the clamps on and throw the kitchen sink at us in the second half. And look, that's exactly what they did. But I kind of liken it to a horse race. And for those who are familiar with, horse race, love a punt or whatnot, obviously there's more than one opponent in a horse race, but it's never cut and dry where the favorite will jump out of the blocks and lead for the whole race. Sure, that
mm,
happens. So we'll just put it in the we're the second favorite horse on the day, and we get out to a big lead. They come back around the turn, and on the straight, it's neck and neck.
mm,
And we keep getting that extra kick to keep our noses in front. And then at the line, we're the ones who take first place. It's over the weekend and in the days since, it's what I've kind of attributed, like kind of compared it to.
Mm-hmm.
And it had a bit of Collingwood about it, right? Like we got out to a fantastic lead, and I'm sure a lot of people had the Collingwood game in their minds where we're away from home against a decent opponent. We put the jump on them early, and of course they were going to respond. For
Mm-hmm.
anyone to think that that wasn't going to happen, you kidding yourselves? Sure, it would have been nice to have padded the margin a bit more and just kept them at arm's length a bit more. But the difference for me between this game and the Collingwood game was that we didn't allow them to put that 7 goal run on.
Mm-hmm.
They had their 2 or 3 goals, and then we would answer just to keep them at bay for a moment, reset. They would kick their two or three goals or whatnot. And, my old man, hi to you. I'm pretty sure he's tuning in for the first time for this episode. He made the point of saying, like, even in the third quarter, and they smashed us in contested possession in the third quarter.
Yeah.
But overall, and for what was it, 2 minutes to go in the third quarter, we were up by 6 goals. So
Mm-hmm.
take that for what you will. Of course, it would have been nice to keep that 6 goal margin at 3/4 time. But we were doing what we needed to do to keep them at bay for that second half, where they had to keep chasing. That momentum didn't just completely shift where they got on top and we didn't have any answers, which did happen against Collingwood. And it's probably like we like to poke fun at the word learnings, but I guess you could
I
say
love
that,
it.
like, in
Yeah.
those isolated moments, those are the learnings that would have come from the
Mm-hmm.
Collingwood game, is that we had opportunities to answer, albeit we would have liked more opportunities and whatnot. But we just kept them at bay. And again, horse racing, we just kept our noses in front enough so that at the finish line, we were the ones taking home first prize. And I called it, like, on Sunday, I called it a spiritual 12-point win because really, we had an open goal, and had it
Mm-hmm.
not been for the siren, Rioli would have kicked a definite goal. Thought he sold, yeah, obviously everyone probably thinks that he sold one too many pieces of candy, when he
Well,
could have just taken the shot a moment earlier. But yeah,
my thought on that is like, depending on how much time he knows is on the clock, is he's thinking just run as
run the
much as I
time.
can,
Yeah,
run into and you take a couple of extra seconds off the clock. I know clock management's not because the AF players don't actually know how much is time on, but they've got a bit better with the signs and stuff. But yeah, I was just thinking
yeah.
that. I did think that at the time, but then afterwards, I was like, oh, is that a little bit of, was he? I'd love to actually ask him. He might just be like, no, I was just running to goal and I just didn't, I just fucking took too much time. But I'd love it if he actually came out and said, yeah, no, I was trying to run a bit of clock off, like whatever I could. It would be,
Yeah, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
because he may not have known if there was 20 seconds or 2 seconds left on, and if he kicks it and then it goes to 12 points. Like, I don't know, he probably should have just kicked it. I've talked myself around to your point of view again. Anyway, but you mentioned a couple of minutes a minute ago about how we were 36 points up with basically 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. That's where a lot of people, as you said, a few people giving us shit, including the audience development guy at the advertiser.
That was strange. That
He's
was
doing
strange. I don't know his name. It was a hyphenate. Yeah,
It's
Mikey,
Mikey
no,
Nicholson or something like
Nicholson
that.
or something
I'll
like
shout
that.
him out. I'll
Yeah.
shout him out in the podcast and say you're a fucking idiot. Because it's so weird. Like he's just
Yeah.
going. People going on tirades about you over. One thing, Ken wasn't over celebrating. I don't get that line.
The criticism is pretty petty.
Just
Yeah, in
so
my
fucking,
opinion.
just
Yeah.
so fucking weird. And then even being over celebrating, you're up by 49 points, Kern, apparently. I don't know what that's about either, but I think we did manage the game up until that point where it got a little. That's what I mentioned kind of in the intro. Like, we kind of had the
Junk time.
case of the junk
Yeah.
times, a little bit of. I think I do think that Willie Rioli, kind of what my dad always said when I get in trouble, but I'd be like, it's kind of not my fault. And my dad would be like, no, you got yourself in this situation though, and you've got to learn from that. I'd be like, that's where I'm at
Yeah.
with watching the Willie thing back. I'm like, yeah, I was a bit dumb with the mark. But then I was like, he got crunched in the like because Guthrie lands on top of him, and I don't think even Rioli was fully aware.
Something really pissed him off.
I don't. Maybe the fact he landed on top of him and like he kind of felt that was a bit, and then whether he was fully aware that Guthrie had actually
Yeah.
taken possession of the ball properly, like at it being a mark, because there was one whistle, he probably should have heard it, but then we don't know what it was. The noise was like at ground level. Um, and so, but he gets into him a little bit, probably a little bit overzealous, even if he's not aware of it being a mark fully. Like I think the umpire, there's been a few situations where the umpire let a bit go on the day, but then he called that 150 really quickly. But when he's running away, Willie's kind of talking back, but he's running forward, and Guthrie comes towards him and grabs his arm, and I'm like, nah, that's that second 50 was
Yeah.
some overzealous bullshit from the umpire. And I get it because that's what
You're not alone in that camp for sure.
I prefaced it by saying, don't let get you. My dad's old saying about don't get yourself, even if it's not totally your fault, you put yourself in the situation. Willie could have taken himself out of it a bit more. But I also
Yeah.
thought it was a bit of a double 50-meter penalty for that kind of stuff is kind of like two soft yellow cards in soccer where someone gets sent off for just two things that aren't,
Yeah.
one yellow, two. It's just
Yeah.
like it's not worthy of
And
being
any
sent
other
off.
game
But
would just be like kind of the ref would just be like, "Oi,
exactly, it's
stop it." Yeah.
referee or umpire discretion, and egregious acts for a double 50 is fine. But I was just like and that gave them after Brad Close, I think had started that run. He kicked a goal a minute, 30 seconds before, but we got it back into our 50 with a 30-point lead. And that Rioli situation happens. Suddenly it goes down there. They get that goal. They get the next clearance. Suddenly it's a goal again, and it's gone from 36 to 18 points in 2 minutes. I thought we'd managed pretty well to that point, and it was again we need to be better, like meant maybe, but then
Absolutely,
it's
yeah.
2 minutes of football. We do need to be better in these junk time situations, but I felt that Rioli situation was kind of just one of those fucking individual. That wasn't a team effort thing that went wrong. We had it in
Yeah,
it. We
yeah, it was
had
an
it in it.
isolated
We
incident.
had it in our forward 50 with a 30-point lead with less than 2 minutes to go in the third quarter. If just that little sequence of unfortunate events doesn't happen, then we're probably going in. We're probably going in with either a 30-point lead or a 4-goal lead, or maybe we get one out of that 50-meter and we get back at 6 goals. It was just that made it tight for this last quarter for me, and then it just ended up being what it was in the last quarter. But we still came out with the win. But I thought people are making a big deal about the comeback thing, and I just thought that was just 2 minutes of chaos that kind of changed the game. But we held on
Yeah.
despite that. The crowd was roaring. Geelong had a spring in their step to be able to hold back that, and I think going through the first 10 minutes of the last quarter with us scoring. No, we scored, and I think 14 minutes to go, then they got one back pretty quick, and then. But I thought the fact we navigated the first 5 minutes of the last quarter without letting them score was big too.
Yeah,
Um,
and I thought so I was actually at my parents' house for dinner on Friday, watched the first half with my dad and brother, and then had to take my little girl home to put her to bed. And I actually missed the whole third quarter. And I made a conscious effort not not to put the TV on or check my phone or anything because I knew that probably would have prolonged the whole putting to bed. So
mhm.
yeah, I heard I think it was Ollie Henry's goal in the third quarter that because they kicked the first goal of the third quarter. I think it was him. And then yeah, no football until then. So
Mm-hmm.
put her to bed and yeah, check my phone and it's 18 points. And I was just like, fuck, this was bound to happen.
Mm-hmm.
But I always thought that the the first goal of the last quarter was going to be the most important for
Mm-hmm.
either team.
Yeah.
And probably whoever kicked the first goal was probably going to win. And for George to take such a good contested mark and convert
Mm-hmm.
truly, it just meant that they had to work even harder. And I thought we actually managed. You talk about clock management in more so in American sports, but
Mm-hmm.
I thought we managed the last quarter pretty well. They took some opportunities. They had a couple of opportunities that were quite fortunate. Um, But yeah, that first goal in particular in the last quarter was vital, and I'm
Yeah.
glad that it was us
Hmm.
that kicked it.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm very much of the belief that we managed that last quarter. Is we had we were doing okay fitness wise, I think, but I think we were probably getting a little bit leggy, and there is the idea that Geelong are the team that's going to come is the one that's going to come, so you've got to not over commit forward or anything, so you can't do what you're doing in the first. Like people go like, what do why do you change what you're doing? But you can't play the way you're doing in the first half when you're trying to manage a lead late. So the way they managed it, I thought was pretty good. There's a couple of out in the fulls. I think Finlayson got tackled as he was kicking one out in the full. I think
And
Zerk,
we're away. If he
yeah,
got that away, we were
mm,
away. Zerk Thatcher
put
took a
one out,
great
yeah.
left his man and took a great mark.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, look, well,
Little
I mentioned
Mutler,
the Georgiades goal, and that was when I think they answered pretty much straight
re
away,
yeah,
and
within the next minute.
that was due to their inside 50 actually being a bit of a mongrel,
Hmm.
and Asava, who had a great game, he has a bit of a knack though, where he's attempting to spoil, and it's getting out the back still, which
Hmm.
is a cardinal sin almost, and they ran into an open goal. Had he spoiled that forward, or actually Visentini was actually in position to mark it,
Hmm.
a more senior Visentini may go, call him out. Go,
Yeah.
I'm here. Like I can mark it. But if Asava, yeah, like we mentioned in the preseason episodes, and like we've kind of alluded to throughout the start of the season, he's got stuff to work on. He's not the finished product in our iteration of Radicalia. But yeah,
Hmm.
if he can just eliminate the kind of balls getting over the back, when he's kind of the last or the second to last line of defense, yeah, we're going to be better for it. It's easier
Hmm.
said than done, of course. I think it was 2 on 3 or 4 in that moment, but we had better position.
Yeah.
That doesn't go through, and yeah, we're still 4 goals up,
Hmm.
with a little less time on the clock. Yeah, yeah, swings and roundabouts of an
Yeah.
AFL game, particularly a top 8 clash.
Hmm.
It was entertaining for sure.
Yeah. And we
More
had
so in the replay.
Yeah, yeah, no, I finished watching it today myself as well, and yeah, it's good watching it sober as well because the game started at 2 o'clock in the morning for me over here, so I was having a few beers and losing my mind as I usually do for those late night games. But yeah, we had some chances late in the fourth quarter to lock it up as well. Like obviously, HORNE-FRANCIS missed one that he's pretty reliable, but I think he looked at
I,
like it looked a bit dazed. Not
he did, yeah, because he got genuinely taken
yeah,
higher.
yeah,
I've
yeah.
got a note on that as well before you move on.
Oh yeah, yeah.
You were probably going to say it, but he's such a good set shot. He should have kicked it
Mhm.
realistically. But have you noticed someone put it out on social media afterwards? But Geelong handballed out of the goal square directly after
Yes,
that goal,
yeah, yeah.
behind, which is against the rules.
Mm, yeah.
Uh, and
I
it
did.
should have been a ball up
I
to the
do have
top of
that
the
in my notes.
square.
I'd forgotten about it today, but it was in my notes from when I started the other day. Yes. I can't
Yeah,
remember what Twitter account it was, but
yeah.
yeah, someone just posted, and then some people were like, and you have a bunch of people arguing about, oh,
I
no,
think it
you're,
was after obviously Chris Scott and his umpire spiel.
I have
And then
some takes on that.
all the kind of clapbacks come from our side of the fence. So it's just, JHF tripped in, I can't remember what quarter, in the forward 50.
That
And
was in the fourth. That was after his shot too.
that was after, yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah. It
right.
was
That's
even
right.
later. That
Yeah.
was
But
when gets up hobbling because he's been clobbered in the shin by Tom Atkins, who's
that was a great effort by him though, in that moment. He just throws himself around, and it's endearing to all Port Adelaide
mm,
fans and football lovers, Australia and worldwide.
yeah. But
But
we
yeah,
should have had another shot on goal there. But it's
well, I think
um
it's supposed to be a ball up, but we did well scoring from stoppage
mm.
on the night. So who knows? A
Oh, you mean
stoppage
for
at the top of the goal square.
the handball one?
Yeah, sorry.
I
Yeah,
was talking about Jason Horn
yeah,
Francis trip.
yeah.
Yeah, we're just so many umpiring decisions in that fourth quarter. Not what the Geelong fans are thinking, but not that
Yeah, it wasn't
I
as bad as last year.
yeah. And to be fair, like I thought the game was umpired pretty well. It's just a little bit late that you point to, but And Geelong fans are pointing to things too. Like they're complaining about the advantage thing, which um, that's a pretty cut and dry
So
situation.
he's shanked that off the side of the boot, and Alir is in pretty good position.
Hmm.
He had a great last quarter as well, Alir.
Yeah, yeah.
If he marked that,
Then we
like,
yeah, it's only
oh,
because it
call it
ended.
back. Like, why didn't you call it back? Like, it's
It's only because it just fortuitously bounced and ended up through the goals from a
someone
player.
who shouldn't have been on the ground.
Yeah, yeah, we'll get into that. Yeah, it was an interesting, and then there was Willem Drew got tackled into Jeremy Cameron and somehow gave away a free kick
Gave away
there.
a free.
There was
Yeah.
someone.
Yeah. Cam Guthrie was, chuckling to himself after that.
And there was someone that went up for Gary Rowan went up for a marking contest and just got nowhere near the ball, but went through the back of I
Oh,
can't remember who it was.
that
So
was in the first half. Yeah.
yeah, so
It
for
was a
everyone that
Sava. Completely took him out of the
was it, yeah.
contest.
So there's a lot that you can point to that went against
Hmm.
Port on the night too that we'd be doing the same. We'd be like, geez, those were some missed calls if we'd lost. And we're doing it now even though we won. But just to counteract
It's always two sides.
against the waves of fans telling us that we got kissed on the dick. The free kick count overall was pretty even, but I think they won it by a couple. But then we had decisions both ways. If you think you got ruined by, apparently you can't be. Some people think if you get swung 360 degrees and get a handball out, you should have been. There was prior opportunity. I don't know. I don't understand what some people think the holding the ball rule is, but
It does
hey,
need work. I would
it
say
does.
that. But yeah,
It is also one of those.
if you haven't completed a tackle, you haven't completed a tackle.
Mm.
So it's tough on players. But yeah.
Yeah, it's like if the player's arms are free and they're able to look around and still get an effective disposal off, then you haven't. I don't think you've done your job
Haven't really
either.
tackled them, have
Yeah,
you?
yeah, no, you
Yeah,
haven't.
yeah,
You've just
yeah.
got half a handle. Like,
It's an
yeah,
interesting one. Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
for sure.
But yeah, it was. We as we've just been talking about for 5-10 minutes, they got no, talking about some umpiring chaos and some goals, missed goals and whatever. It was a chaotic finish that we managed our way through pretty well. And I don't, and Geelong, like I said, they got their run on with that little bit of fortuitous end of the third quarter. But beyond that, I think we actually managed it pretty well, and I think that should be commended, I guess, because I just I'm a lot
Yeah.
more. I was a lot more impressed watching it back and realizing because sometimes on the night when you watch it, I keep my notes, but
Yeah. Oh,
it still felt like the whole second half. But while we did have to we slowed down in that third quarter and didn't get this goal scoring pressure on, but we weren't giving them a mountain of opportunities either. So I'm just quite impressed with how we did it, and especially this is a Geelong team, as you mentioned, second on the ladder still. So a top four team, by the way. Going into the game and
top
now.
four right now. The narrative will change if they drop out
Yeah, but
at the
then
end of the season.
no one will give us credit for the Essendon one, even though they're in the top four right now too.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I was you mentioned earlier, just showing how important he is to the defensive structure because Asava and Zerk Thatcher looked better again this week than they did last week as well, and obviously just Aaliyah is again so important. And well, not thankfully it was a concussion, but luckily it wasn't a major
Like a serious, yeah,
joint
yeah,
tissue.
yeah. I know
It
what
was
you
it was
mean.
a
Yeah.
concussion, which is serious. But the fact that he could get back for the game and play a really good game, like him, Asava was taken. Was I thought Asava had one of his best games for us so far. I was trying to actually think where I'm at with. He's only had a short career, so it's not like a great spread of games. But I just was really impressed with his not as many. Obviously, there wasn't the big Asava meme moments or anything like that. I thought,
No,
obviously,
no.
you brought
Apart
it.
from that one,
You
yeah,
brought up the
yeah.
contest, but I have more of an issue. Actually, I meant to say just a quick note on that. We do that a lot where we have guys fly for the ball and then the ball gets over the back of a contest and someone's running and we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like it seems like more of a defensive what we're doing defensively, structurally wise, and training for. But generally, we're actually I think our defensive structure over the years has been okay. If
Yeah.
as long as the horses are there and fit, so I'm not going to get too bent out of shape about it. It's just one thing I'm probably going to be watching for a while this season because there's been a few of those.
It's probably a symptom of getting caught on the break, like the
Yes, exactly.
team's fast breaking.
Hmm.
Yeah. Um, but it's obviously happened a number of times this season.
Yeah.
And it's a coach, like, even though the coach has developed a game plan where we are aggressively forward pressing, and a symptom of that seems to be fast break goals and, yeah, goals coming out the back of the contests. Yeah.
Hmm.
You don't want to see him. You don't
Yeah.
want to see him.
I think I had a note in my I'm scrolling back to my quarter one notes. It's just I've got an all caps one that was just like transition bullshit again. Because I think towards the end of that first quarter, I think they got a couple in transition, and then we got a couple towards the end of the quarter that made it just great again. Anyway, so
Yeah. I was
um,
trying to manually figure out the whole premiership window criteria. And I don't think it's just points for and points against that they use for that. I think it's a bit deeper.
yeah,
Um, because I was going, well, if we're top six for defense, then the transition goals that we give up, like we must still be defending well enough to offset the fact that that's the only way that teams
yeah.
can get goals. So
Mm,
yeah, again, rose-colored glasses, apologists,
hmm.
opinion there. But yeah, I'll let you finish what you were saying.
Oh yeah, no, I think that was a bad. I can't even remember. I was going back to my notes, but
Notes.
yeah, there's
Yeah.
I have so many. I was just typing away during that, especially when they're on that
Yeah.
run in the first half. Just like, oh my god, oh my god, I've got
I've
just a
gotten into
bunch.
a bad habit of not doing some of that. Just on a behind the curtain note. I do have an opinion on Asava and
Hmm.
his game
Well,
against
yeah,
Hawkins. So
we were talking.
we were talking
I
about
was
him
talking generally
before.
about defense now before we get into the rest of it. So yeah, go for it. I want to hear it because
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, because you started with Lear, yeah.
Mm.
Yeah, I just watched the last quarter and great.
He
Great last
stand
quarter by Lear. But
he stands up when it matters, which is what I love about
it just
Aaliyah.
gets
Yeah.
himself in good positions. Like
Hmm.
he has a great footy IQ, Aaliyah.
Yeah. Hmm.
And when you take into account he's stronger than he looks for the size that he is and his wingspan, it's
Mm.
just all ingredients that you love in a player like that. And
Yeah.
yeah, very happy to have him back into the team, but
Mm.
at our club. Um, Asava's game was awesome, I thought. Uh, I thought that for the most part, Hawkins could only find possession up the ground, which is
Mm.
perfect, for a power forward. Sure, it's a strategy to get possession up the ground because you're a bit of a get out target for your defense. Um, but let's be honest, Hawkins has not had the greatest month of
Mm.
football.
Yeah. Still,
Um,
he broke our drought his drought against us, but it wasn't like a dam bust.
yeah,
Thankfully, it wasn't a dam busting one. I think he only kicked the one goal, didn't he? So
it was a
yeah.
good goal. It was
Mm.
one goal.
Mm.
Excuse me, but it's kind of marries into my point with Darcy Fogarty in the showdown. So as I mentioned in our review of the showdown, Darcy Fogarty, up until that point, I think he had a good game against Brisbane.
I
Not
think
100% sure on that.
he kicked three or four. He
Um,
kicked two of the ones that got them back towards the draw.
right, of course. So
I was very drunk on Saturday night, and I was sitting up with heartburn, watching the end, watching the end of that one. Like just the 36-year-old problems after
yeah, yeah.
shots of tequila and cigars and stuff. And I was sitting up with heartburn like 1:30 in the morning, just waiting for my stomach to settle. And
I'm
I was
not
just
22
yeah,
anymore.
exactly. But yeah, I put the end of the Crows game on, and yeah, Fogarty
Yeah.
had a good game. But
And
yeah,
so he
anyway,
seemingly played him into form.
we're good at that
But yeah,
sometimes.
it kind of marries into my point where Hawkins hasn't had a great month or great year so far for a statesman of the game. And we did the right thing. We put our biggest guy, size wise, on their power forward, their biggest forward. And he made sure that he didn't have a great game. That was my point against the Crows was Darcy Fogarty hadn't had a great start to the game. So let another team play him into form.
Hmm.
Let's continue his bad form by ticking the box. So again, another learning, perhaps. we made sure that Hawkins didn't get played back into form.
Mm-hmm.
Let someone else do that. We put Asava on him, and Asava did the job. He has intricate knowledge of their club and Hawkins, specifically, having
Mm.
been there for what was it, 7 years. So
Yeah.
I was just impressed that although Hawkins he's not shooting the lights out, we ticked the box. We did the right thing.
Mm.
We kept that part of the game simple. Our biggest guy on their biggest guy, make sure he doesn't have an influence, and he didn't. Credit to Asava.
Mm.
He had a, I don't want to detract from his game, but it was a layup for him, and he sunk the bucket
Mm-hmm.
um like he should. If we're going to, yeah, be the team that we want to be, he has to make sure of the job that he's given, and he did. I'm super impressed.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
He
I
should
absolutely,
have done it a
absolutely.
week earlier.
Yeah, yeah, and again, but that just shows how important Ilya is back there because, like, I think Ilya already, like, they've come in, Zerk Thatcher and Asava have come in to be, additional points to the Ilya centered defense
Sure.
and structure. And so, yeah, last week, unfortunately, like, yeah, it would have been interesting to know how that showdown goes with Ilya in there, but you can't make excuses. You just play your horses on the day.
Or if they
Um,
just put Asava on Darcy Fogarty from
Exactly. Yeah.
the
Just
word
play,
go.
yeah. And maybe, yeah, again, you said maybe some learnings to just not overthink the process. Sometimes you just got to
Yeah,
go.
I put it on the
Sometimes you just,
coaches. Like, it's nothing against Asava at all.
yeah.
Because once he went on Fogarty, had a great game, I
Hmm.
thought. Played a great game against Hawkins. He did the job. He did
Hmm.
what he is there to do. It's more a criticism of the coaching in the showdown and
Yeah.
how, when you do get it right, continue someone's bad form, let another club play someone into form.
Hmm.
Not don't let it be us.
Yeah. And I guess that's the opposite, the 180-degree swing that we did against Geelong is we didn't let anyone, having a look at their stats, I don't think they had anyone above 23, 24 disposals.
Yeah,
And I
right.
thought it was interesting. I mean, I think Zerk Thatcher had a few mistakes in the game. I think early on when they got their first goal, he kind of got caught in no man's land when he was trying to wonder if, because I think it was more of our structure in the sense that we let those balls come out the back and suddenly there's Zerk Thatcher trying to cover two players that are, it's going to be a pick 'em for who they go to kick the gimme goal, but he still kind of probably just left himself in no man's land rather than just making them make a choice and maybe take the kick
Yeah,
and shank it. But overall, I still think he's very good for the structure down there, and his body's well, and still makes contests quite
oh
regularly,
yeah,
which is
yeah.
he did a lot of that.
That's
He
football.
didn't have his
Like,
highlight
defenders are going to
moments.
get caught. Yeah,
It's kind of
yeah,
like goalkeepers in soccer. You don't notice them until they make a mistake. Sometimes,
yeah.
the
Sure,
layman
you'd love a perfect
obviously,
game.
yeah. But I think he had a reasonable game. Not, but he was probably overshadowed by some good performance from Aaliyah and Asava. But hey, if that's the way we're going to play, and there's just some guys
Yeah,
taking the limelight some week, then we'll fucking take it. 365 days a year, 366 in a leap year. I thought just finishing off on the just defensive stuff in general, I thought the job we did on Cameron was reasonable. He's been
yeah,
obviously been making headlines this year with how he's been playing and kind of turned into this ultra utility swingman. LeBron James,
yeah.
I've mentioned LeBron twice in this podcast for some reason, but he was just one of those athletes that can do a bit of a lot of the stuff that just break out of the norms of what a player is expected to do. Um, and so he's been, a lot of time up the ground and stuff like that. And then obviously his forward prowess is well known. He was threatening to have an influence at all times, but we were just bodying him enough and getting those tackle, it's just that Zach Butters tackle on him early in the game. And just
Oh, that was awesome.
we
Yeah,
set the
yeah,
we set the tone by having we clearly went in with a plan that we're going to make it tough on their stars. Obviously, the Jed McEntee influence that he had at the opposite end of the field as a defensive forward on
I
Tom
have
Stewart as
comments on
well.
that too.
Oh yeah, no, I've I thought we both would. But yeah,
Yeah,
I
it
thought
was
the
yeah,
job.
finish on defense
Yeah,
first. Yeah.
I thought
I
the
thought it
job
was a
we
whole team effort against Cameron,
it was because
whereas
when he's
like
up
Bergman had a job on him at Adelaide Oval last year, and that
Mhm.
was well noted. I thought it was more of a team effort, a real
They must have watched
concerted
some.
effort.
Yeah, just complete effort. I don't know. But they, yeah,
Yeah,
well,
yeah,
a
yeah,
concerted, concentrated effort on understanding what he's
yeah.
doing
If
this
he's
year.
there, yeah, you guys do it. If he's
They must
there,
have it.
you guys do it, and pay attention to where he
Yeah.
wants to go.
I mean, credit to the film room or whoever does the, the preparation for the week in understanding what a player's doing in this current time, because obviously it's a different
Sure.
role. They
Yeah.
must have done some work leading into this game and understanding, and then putting that work and that information to the players to know, as you said, to kind of, it's not like it's a individual team, individual person defense on him. It's if he's in this period in this part of the field, then it's your job, your responsibility. If he's lining up in the wing
Hmm.
from or lining up in the wing from the center bounce, um, or if he's down back in his
Deep
more
forward. Yeah,
traditional
oh, yeah,
role, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, it's yeah, I thought that the job was, he still had an influence. He was still threatening to break out at all times, but we were also bodying up enough and doing a good job on him. Um, yeah, because there's a certain point that you're not going to completely shut down everyone ever. It's just you make it
No,
tough enough on them to do that. So I thought, yeah, the job on Cameron was reasonable. Obviously, yeah, we can talk about the concussion thing after when we maybe talk about a few different things when we're finishing off on the game. But in general game stuff, I thought, yeah, the job on him was good. And I mean, Rowan, I think, was probably their only. They had a couple of multiple goal scorer. I actually don't have the goal scoring stats in front of me, but Rowan kicked a couple. But we've had problems against teams with multiple power forwards, including Geelong, probably a couple of years
Stengel
ago.
kicked four. He was the other
Stengel,
one.
kind of forgot about that actually, because he just popped up every now and then. With yeah, yeah. So it's
He stood
small.
up for them in the second half. I think he
Yes.
kicked three out of the four, perhaps, in the second
Mm.
half, if I remember correctly. Um,
Yeah, he did get one early, but yeah, then there was they didn't get too many others in that first half. So yeah, yeah, Stengel was good. Yeah, I forgot about.
but yeah, going back to your
Mhm.
yeah, big forwards point, which yeah, I agree with, but
It was a
continue
couple.
on.
I think it was a couple of years ago when they came to Adelaide Oval, and we had that one quarter. We had the 8 goal third quarter against them or whatever. And
I was there. That
I
was a
was
fantastic
there.
quarter.
I was there. Yeah, that was a standing ovation at the end of the quarter kind of game. And
Yeah, I did. I think
I
it
remember I
was.
remember getting up and just being
Little
like,
did we know.
yes. And then yeah, obviously they came back and won it in the end. But that was one of those games where it was the forwards who really had a good day against us, and I like seeing that in this game.
A
And
lot of
that
Hawkins pushing Cleary in the back, if I
yes,
remember
yeah,
correctly.
yeah, Hawkins, yeah, yeah, one of those games where we're just like, why doesn't Charlie get those ones? Yeah.
Yeah, he's down the other end.
Can you send
He's
that
paying
umpire
up.
switch the umpires and send that guy down there and
Yeah,
let him give those ones there too. Um, but yeah, it's good to see, especially in an away game as well. Obviously, a home game would be, but to see our defensive effort in an away game nullify a lot and really kind of block out the white noise of the just the ground, and actually shut the crowd down up
oh,
until the
yeah,
end of the third
absolutely.
quarter is the first time I really heard the roar come through the TV.
Yeah.
So
And then, like
um,
they said, once George kicked that goal in the fourth, they
kind of
shut up as
yeah,
well.
and it became more anxiety ridden noise in that last 10 minutes. It wasn't that.
Yeah, yeah, it was a
Yeah, it
panic.
was.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Please win on their behalf.
yeah.
And our cheer squad is like, hold the lead.
That really weird area of a game, that squeaky bum time for
Yeah, I
both.
mentioned that I put my daughter to bed, and by three
Mhm.
quarter time, she's 2.5. And for parents, you know that like your kid gets to a certain age where you kind of just leave them awake in their room to put themselves to sleep. She's at that point in her development, and I swear I came out and the fourth quarter started. Guy was already at a high decibel level, and I had to check myself a few times and then recruit a pillow to yell into and yell into my hands just to make sure that she actually went to sleep and stayed
Yeah,
asleep. Because yeah, there was a lot of frustration and yeah,
it was.
anxiety, like you said,
Yeah, it
during that fourth
was.
quarter.
Yeah. Oh God, especially it's such a weird because I'm at that time I actually didn't take a nap before the game either, which I usually do. Um,
Yeah.
I decided I think I had taken a nap earlier in the day, but I usually sleep from about 10 through to 2 when the game's starting, but I didn't. I just like started having my beers and playing some baseball on the PlayStation and Yeah, so I was even more delirious and so I actually get weird, like especially at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, I get quiet because I'm like, I am
Yeah,
getting,
you're in
I
a
am getting,
weird state.
I'm 6 beers in, well, probably eight at that point, and I'm just kind of tired, but also hyped. Like I'm never going to be able to go to sleep, but I'm also my body's just exhausted, and I'm
Yeah,
just not
yeah.
mentally realizing it yet. So I'm just kind of sitting there holding my beer, just like in like kind of like it's a teddy bear, just sipping on it occasionally, and just watching
Can't
the last
sleep,
quarter.
clown will eat
Yeah.
me. Can't, can't sleep, Geelong will win.
It's exactly. Oh, it's good episode for pop culture references. Um, but yeah, and so that last 10 minutes, I was just quiet. Like I've gotten better about because I grew up with my dad hating me, waking him up watching Liverpool games in at the similar time in Australia. So I'm like, but so now I've been trained by that, and so I try to keep quiet for my wife sleeping. While I'm quietly losing my mind, but yeah, it was a real weird end to that game. But um, moving towards I think there's a lot to cover, and as far as all the stuff we
Mm,
loved in the game, but
sure.
I guess the forward line. I guess we can start on. Obviously Rioli had a great game, and I'm sure he'll come up a bit as we go on, but loved that job from McEntee again. He started what four? I think 4 or 6 disposals. I
Yeah,
have I have
six
it 6. I have it here.
at
I think
83% though.
mhm.
Four of them contested. So
Yeah,
what's
but
that as a percentage? I've had a drink, so 4 out of 6. It's
uh,
probably
it's
really easy.
it's
Really
60.
easy.
Is
It's
it
like
60? It's
66%.
66%.
Yeah.
Yeah, you gotta
Yeah,
you halve
really
it and do
easy.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
really easy. Yeah. People are just like, you fucking idiot.
Look,
Um,
guys, we've been out of school for a while now, and we have
hmm Yeah.
and we have calculators to do this,
I don't work in
and
sales anymore. Don't need to deal with
yeah.
numbers on the fly.
Even when I did work in sales, public, customer service, it was just like the computer did so much of it for you anyway. So, though I did
Yeah.
help with a few, the grant applications and stuff, and did stats and stuff. So I do have, but it's still I'm always using a calculator to help me. So, um, but yeah, the job that I've never been more proud of a Port player as to seeing him just like, and Zach Butters had a lot of moments in this game too. These guys
It
were
was
up.
almost like,
They
yeah,
were up for
I
the.
had a
They were up
similar
for the
thought.
contest. They were up for the contest,
Yeah.
and really, whatever. We've had a lot of criticism about, and this is going sideways before we get back to McAdee, and I guess we can talk about Butter and just the general contest of the game too.
hmm
Um, we've had a lot of criticism about preparation for games and mentality going into them. I can't like this is one of the considering
It's a prime
how
example.
how pissed
What are you
off we
saying?
were about the mentality going into the showdown. This is a complete opposite. We went into this game with the exact what I don't know what they did in the week. It was a masterclass of preparation and understanding and what we have to like. McEntee being a mid-sized forward defender on and defensive forward on an all Australian defender and
Yeah.
really Tom Stewart's last 5 years in the AFL have been pretty flawless. And yet after this game, you've got
He's the
Dave.
best in his role. Like,
Yeah, you've got
if not
Dave.
top two, top
He's
three.
he's 4 or 5 time All Australian, isn't he? I think, or is
I
he?
don't know. I know
Yeah,
he is an all Australian and
yeah.
he is consistent
I'm trying to
at
think
that
of,
level.
and it's always through the prism of football cards that I remember because there's always the all
Yeah.
Australian cards, and I'm trying to remember how many years he's been in the checklist. Um, but to the point that watching first crack after the
First
weekend.
crap.
Yeah, depending on if we win or lose, and how
Yeah,
and how
yeah.
and
I
how
saw
good we
someone write
look.
that on Twitter and I wanted to insert it at the first opportunity.
I love that because it's come up a bit on this podcast already, and will probably continue to my love hate with David King opinions, but um,
We're
he
on the right side of him this
yeah,
time around.
the fact that we did a job, and it was Jed McEntee, a mid-season draft pick, did a job so well on
hmm
Tom Stewart to nullify what he does that you have David King on first crack going, this is the blueprint. This is what you got to do. Like,
Yeah, this is the
he's just
template, is what he
this is
said on SEN today
yeah.
or yesterday. Sorry,
Yeah. He's
yeah.
just like this is how if every team does this to him, you're gonna have success. And like, and
Yeah, what are
I
they
think
going to
I think Anthony
do?
Hudson's just like, are you saying every team can do this? He's like, I think they can. Like,
Well,
Hutto's
yeah,
just
you've got
Hutto's
every
just
team's got a
despondent. Yeah,
expendable small forward
especially in the modern
who
AFL, the way it's played a
whose
little
job
bit.
it is already is to apply pressure. You can just shift that to be a defensive forward. Like everyone craps on about McEntee and his goal kicking, but like, and he did this job again at Adelaide Oval last year when we
Hmm.
played them at home, and it was highlighted then.
And that was a
So
30,
yeah,
40 point win in the end from memory. It was a good win.
yeah,
I
it
just
was
can't remember
upwards
the
of
exact
6 to 7
margin.
goals.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And it was highlighted then. David King mentioned that, Ken Hinkley stuck with what he already knew works.
Hmm.
And that's put McEntee on Stewart. Like we didn't need McEntee to kick 2 or 3 goals. We didn't even need him to kick any goals.
No, because you got Willie
Just
Rioli being able to benefit from the open space
just
that's been given
being a
and kicked for.
magician
Yeah,
on the night. And
could have had 6, 7.
could have had
Yeah,
7. Like, yeah, could have, should have, would have, could have had 8 because the last shot was
yeah. Well, I was counting that as well.
uh
I'm trying to think of
yeah,
my
no
calculations,
score.
but yeah.
But McEntee, like I've got here as my note actually. Like if McEntee wants to become the biggest fucking pest in the AFL, I'm 100% for that.
This is me.
Like,
People watching on YouTube might not have seen it, but I'm just doing like a signature motion because I'm like, oh,
sign
sorry,
me
but
up.
listening,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm signing me up.
Like, if he wants to be the next iteration of Hayden Ballantyne, fucking go for it. Like,
Mm,
if you every week you're going to take out the opposition's best rebounding halfback and you're going to be a fucking pest about it,
mm,
and you're going to get them annoyed that they give away free kicks to you. They're going to take you up the ground, and you're actually going to get an opportunity for some inside 50s. I think
mm.
McEntee had a goal assist as a result of it. I can't remember. I need to scroll through my stats, but if that's what he's going to grow into, as well as his tackling pressure inside 50 and whatnot,
Yeah, doesn't have a goal assist on
100%
the
for it.
stats I've got, but he's got 2 score involvements. So,
Yeah.
yeah, might have been a secondary assist or something like that.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah.
I know he had an inside 50 that was quite damaging. Again,
Mm,
can't remember if a goal came as a result of it through that chain. But yeah, that's what happened was they had to do something with Stewart and they pushed him up. And I think when they pushed him up first, they just matched Bergman up to it, up on him. But then yeah, we found McEntee further up the field as well, just
yeah.
absolutely getting stuck into him. And there were other pockets of play where yeah, Zach Butters put a little bump on Stewart as well, just to add that niggle and
Hmm.
get in his head a bit more. But he was quite visibly frustrated,
Hmm.
especially when he gave away that 50. But even when Geelong were coming back, there were still pockets of time that you could see Stewart ruminating on the night that he was having and how
Hmm.
difficult it was being made to be.
Yeah, and he's probably like, "Who the fuck's this kid?" Like, obviously he
Yeah,
knows, but like, he's just like,
yeah.
"Did I go into my week thinking Jed McEntee was going to be an absolute fucking problem for me? No." Like,
I'm all for it,
yeah.
100%.
So I was really
Um,
impressed with it. It's you and I have talked about the dark arts a little bit, and that's what that was. It
sure,
was like a
yeah,
little,
love it.
but like that's what the dark arts in football is a legal way to do it. Yes, it's a little bit pesty, and it's not the level of punching a guy in the nuts like Jack Revolt or anything. We're not talking about that. It's just that little bit of niggle where
Yeah,
you find the line because AFL footy is a contact sport. It's going to be a niggle sport that's high. You've just got to be good at doing that stuff. And yes, they won one with Rioli, as I talked about earlier. While I have my issues with the softness of both of them together, Rioli put himself in that situation, got himself the 50 against, and so that's them doing a little bit of the dark
yeah.
arts with
You,
that little
the
arm
dark arts
tug.
is towing the line. Like
Yeah, and they
you're
just
pushing the boundary.
yeah. But we did that, and that ended up in a goal as well. So beyond, like after there was a little bit of chain of play, I think the Ollie Wines set shot comes from that sequence of play after that. So it was very, very important in a run of goals that we had. In that run, just keeping that pressure on, because even beyond the scoring pressure is the chef's kiss on all of it, but the fact that you're putting this all around field pressure on, and as I mentioned, Zach Butters was a part of it too. His obviously Butters wines and stuff we'll get into as I've got them. They're going to feature later, so that's why I haven't brought them up
Yeah.
too much yet. But we'll talk about
Yeah,
we'll
yeah,
talk about the
same.
midfield masterclass in a generality here in a moment. But yeah, Butters just crashing into guys and coming up like when he's coming up smiling after he's just I love that when Butters is in that form
That
when
would
he's
just add that layer of frustration to the opposition. It's like, stop fucking smiling. Stop smiling. Like you little fucking runt. Like while
yeah,
you rack up 30 plus possessions and yeah,
and bounce and have the
do
ball on a
extravagant
string.
things.
Yeah, have another. I think he had. Yeah, I've got it in front of me. 3 bounces for the game. Like he just again just
I wrote you recorded that down. Yeah.
yeah.
Love it.
He
I
does it
wonder what he's
so.
going to end up on.
Yeah, I actually I should have. You saying that's only the reason it's come to my mind. I'd love to know what the record is because he's as he grows into his career, he's doing it more and more now. And
He is going to continue to do it as
I
well.
have a note of it somewhere in my notes from the game, but there's something he does when he bounces. He's one of few players when he bounces, he doesn't lose his like he the way he maneuvers his body. I don't know
Like
if it's
stride.
yeah, he doesn't lose
Like,
because
yeah.
sometimes players slow down to take their bounce because they're not whether it's confidence in it or whatever. But
Because no one does it anymore. Like, yeah,
yeah,
it's a bit foreign.
he
He
bounces
bounces a
and
bit like a basketball too, I've
yeah,
noticed. It's
and
kind of like more just like
mhm,
pushed down instead of forward. Because it's
yeah,
just so that
it's
just to
taken into
ensure that he
and
doesn't get caught running too far.
often he's yeah because yeah he I saw someone on Twitter like was doing something about like rules you'd change, and someone was just like, "Oh, I wouldn't let players take a bounce within 5 meters of starting their run." I'm like, no, that first of all, my bias would be like it's Butters would be fucked by that because he does that thing
I
where he
think I
takes.
saw that, and I think we can put that in the engagement farming
Oh yes, no,
category
it
for
is
whoever wrote
absolutely
that.
absolutely is engagement farming because it was I don't respond to a lot of it unless it's directly port related, and I feel like I need to step in, but. It was one of those things where I was just like, no, because there's a tactical awareness that Butters has. Is like sometimes he'll take the bounce 2, 3 steps in because he's like surveyed the field already because he's a fucking wizard. Um,
Yeah.
and he's seen that, okay, if I take this bounce now, then I've got 10, and I go this way, I've got 10 steps out the back here. Like that's, he kind of sees what he's doing some, he's like Zach Galifianakis, like
In the
in the
hangover,
hangover,
counting
just
cards.
surveying, like he's just like, I've seen it all already. So if I take a bounce now, I can
Another
get
pop culture reference.
it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just
So
racking up dollars, counting
the
cards. Zach Butters, yeah. Zach Butters is the football version of a card counter at blackjack tables.
exactly, especially with his bounce, like his awareness in those situations, and like when he takes those bounces and doesn't lose a step of speed, is what's I had a note of that at some point in the game. He took a bounce and he just didn't lose a step of speed, and I'm like, there's not many players that can do that. That the defender
Yeah.
doesn't get any closer to them. It's just incredible. So yeah, he had a great game. Obviously,
I watch
um,
so many blackjack videos on YouTube and like I just want to like the movie 21, awesome. But I just want to watch
so yeah.
Hangover now just to watch.
Yeah, having been to Vegas now, I took a trip in my senior year of college when my good bud lives up in the northeastern suburbs now as well. He came over to visit me in my winter break in my senior year of college, and we took a trip to Vegas. And yeah, that movie really hits the nail on the head.
Yeah, yeah,
That city
yeah.
is unique.
Sure.
But
Absolutely.
yeah, I'm not a huge game. I love sports gambling. I'm not a huge car. I like playing poker and stuff like that, but I'm not a huge.
Yeah, just like with some mates.
I let him go after that stuff. I just sat in the 20 cent machine, or not 20 cent machines, but the quarter machine. You consider it a
Oh,
machine.
wow.
You consider it a machine as long as you put in you just sit there basically, and but like waitresses will come and bring you free drinks,
Free drinks. Yeah,
free cigarettes.
I've heard.
The city is locked in the 1960s, and yeah. So I sat there and like put like a quarter and 25 cents in a machine every like 15 minutes whenever the lady would go past and she'd come back. Oh, you want another drink? You just tip them a couple of dollars so they keep coming back. and you're getting $2 drinks for forever. It's incredible. That's a side note. That's a complete tangent, but love Vegas. But yeah,
Yeah, the consumers of our content can probably tell how riveted we are with a win by how many side tangents we got.
yeah, we really get just
And
80.
I hope you're still with us because
Yeah,
yeah,
to
still got
go to
segments to come.
just go back to Fast and Furious, just like what's his face, just being like the ADHD. I've got that shit, that ADHD, and I'm just like, that's me with Port when they win. I'm just like off on my different tangents. Um,
A
yeah,
couple of drinks and yeah, you're
yeah.
away.
Mid midfield masterclass, incredible. I've
Yeah,
said it in a few. Actually, we can probably lead into it, but I think we should start with Vicentini first because I think he deserves his plaudits as well. It was obviously when you see your secondary ruckman that you've traded in, like obviously the Ivan Soldo, we were pretty happy with his start to the career at Port Adelaide. He goes down
absolutely.
injured.
Yeah,
Jordan Sweet comes in. He's been okay to start with, but then he goes down with illness. And I think we've all been pretty confident in what Vicentini can provide, but we just haven't seen him
yeah,
enough at the level. And then coming in to this game being the top of the table topping almost Geelong Cats
yeah,
at their home stadium, it was like, can he rise to the occasion? He absolutely did. Loved his tap work as well.
yeah.
His body at the contest. He literally got Reece Stanley subbed out of the game 30
Yeah,
minutes in.
yeah,
Like
you
like
can
like it's
like
incredible.
when at the end of his career, yeah, he can look back and go like, I specifically got someone subbed out of the game.
Yeah.
Like
With
that
10
was
minutes to go
like
in the
it
second
would
quarter. Like it wasn't like it was
and look, in hindsight, it was a good tactical move by Chris Scott, who's a good
it
coach.
it was, yeah.
But
Yeah.
like he got subbed out because he was getting a bath by a fourth gamer
Hmm.
in Vicentini. Fourth gamer, or was this his fifth? One of the two. Sub
Yeah.
five coming into the game. Yeah. Like Reece Stanley is a premiership player.
Hmm.
What I will say though
And I saw
is,
some people on Twitter like just like
yeah, sorry, you go,
just
yeah, yeah.
finish up. Yeah, the footy commentary leaking in was just like, is that just Reece Stanley done now for the Cats? Like that's what people were
Yeah,
saying.
yeah, yeah. He's not only has he subbed him out, he's retired
Yeah.
him. Um, but like what I will say though is it kind of was a perfect opportunity for Vicentini and on a side note like Finlayson to come back in
Hmm.
was that Vicentini being a young, energetic like ruckman to cut to the chase, and then Finlayson being a hybrid. Geelong, I don't class Reece Stanley as a genuine ruckman. I
Hmm.
find it fascinating that his career has lasted this long, and generally he has a good game against us for whatever reason. But
As you said, we're good
Blixarves
at
is a
playing teams into players into form. Yeah.
yeah. But Blixarves is a hybrid. Reece
Yeah.
Stanley is a bit of a hybrid. So it was a perfect opportunity for Vicentini to go bang. Like, and then when Finlayson chopped out and Marshall to another lesser extent, like, yeah, I feel that if, Geelong still had Hamish McIntosh, for example, going back a bit, like a genuine ruckman, it
Hmm.
might have been a bit more difficult for him, but like he had the opportunity to impose himself and he absolutely took it. He brought the effort. Like you said, his tap work was fantastic. His second and third efforts were fantastic. And that's the tangible things that like no matter how much experience you have, no matter where you are on the ladder, that's what you can bring to a game. But that's on you. And he brought it and he did the job and he got a premiership player subbed out as a result.
Hmm. Yeah, he had 31 hitouts for the game, which was I think Stanley and Blickarves
Oh,
combined had 30. Some of his around the ground, he's quite his around the groundwork was what really was the kind of chef's kiss on top of it all too. Because
yeah,
there was at one point,
absolutely.
and I don't remember who it was, but there was at some point when the ball came into our back 50, we kind of gathered it. It wasn't like a great opportunity for John, but it was one of those ones where we had to gather, and then whoever took possession of the ball, I can't remember who it was. I should have remember this on the replay, but they handballed out towards Vicentini, who was kind of running back through our defensive 50 line. And it kind of handballs in front of him, and Vicentini has to reach out to gather it in, but he just does it in such a nonchalant, confident way. Um, that was really just kind of symptomatic of how good he was, and like how confident and quietly confident he was. He didn't seem overawed by the occasion. I just saw the connection is unstable on my
Yeah,
Zoom come up, so I don't know how much of that you caught, but I was really just saying how calm and collected Vicentini was around the field, and a particular,
surprising.
yeah, that back line,
But yeah,
yeah,
surprising all throughout his first handful of games. Um, Even when he was rushed into his debut game,
mm.
how kind of
Similar situation in a way because it wasn't like expected probably up until later in the week when,
yeah, yeah, he had a
yeah,
bit more notice this time around. But
yeah,
yeah, like just how kind of maybe whether it's on him or the coaches, someone is has simplified his role.
mm.
Apparently, like that's how I perceive. Yeah, like going off the back of what you said, like yeah, that's how I perceive it. Like he's just kind of not overawed, but that's probably off the back of like just focusing on the task at hand in the moment.
Mm.
Um, and uh, like a bit of athleticism and like so he was drafted with Josh Sin. They were taken in the same
Yes,
draft, and
yeah,
I remember early days. I can't remember if it was their first year, or it was early in their second year, but we extended both of their contracts. I think it was in the first year. Kind of a lot of clubs were extending draftees
mm.
within their first year around that time. And Josh Sin, everyone kind of knew the talent that he possessed from his draft year. And, he's a running half back and could probably transition into the midfield if everything goes together down the track. But Vicentini got a contract extension and he had a press conference as well. And it was kind of all at the same time. And at the time, it was like, well, that's kind of rare that
Mm.
they would kind of extend a young ruckman so early into his career.
Mm.
But as we've spoken about Jason Cripps and our list management team before, they all probably see something in him that we're all now starting to see and appreciate. Um, Off the back of that extension, like he's got a certain something about him that will hold him in good stead for years to come,
Mm.
which is fantastic. And now it's brought up a bit of a debate about whether we actually needed to recruit to Ruckman,
Mm.
which is an interesting thought, but I don't think like I said, coming up against a genuine big bodied ruck. Would he have the same effect? Maybe around the ground, but maybe the stoppages may be a bit more difficult. So we still need that insurance, in my opinion.
Yeah,
But can't complain with how he performed. And just looking at hitouts to advantage, something that's been a theme of our ruck group, no matter who has been selected, is that we seem to be beating the opposition's ruckman in that very important statistic of
mm.
being able to hit out to advantage. Because, yeah, like I've mentioned it before, like no matter how many hitouts you get, it's really the ones that to advantage are obviously the most beneficial. And yeah, he had 10 to advantage and Blixarves had 4, who was the next best on the night.
Mm.
So, and like Sweet before him and Soldo before him
Yeah,
also
I
were
mean,
beating their opposition at hitouts to advantage, which
I think we're number
like
one
it's,
in the league when the Soldo was. I don't know
yeah,
where
yeah,
I haven't
yeah.
actually looked at where we're at now with the couple of changes in our ruck
I
over the
know
past few weeks,
Soldo
but
specifically had the highest kind of rating points
yeah,
out of any ruckman before he got his arthroscope.
mm.
But it's a nice change, like with our ruck department. And look, I think Kane Corns has mentioned, like, you don't need an all Australian ruckman to be
Mm.
successful. You just generally need someone who's going to compete.
Mm.
But it's just so refreshing where we've had players like Scott Lysett who were battlers and like loved Scott Lysett.
Mm.
Nothing against him, but this is a bit of a change for me. Like this is the first time I'm kind of really paying attention to this statistic specifically,
Mm.
but it does seem to be a change in our ruck group where we seem to be having more influence coming out of the ruck, and particularly in this regard. I don't know what you think about that,
Yeah,
and our
no,
ruckman prior to this group.
yeah, no, yeah, definitely agree. I think when we were talking about Soldo a few weeks ago, I might have intimated to it, but it may not have been. So, but yeah, our like Lycett's last couple of years have been struggles with injuries
Yeah,
and just not having the because his around the ground work was getting more and more limited by his limited movement, and he wasn't. And once he started not competing in the ruck, it just became even more of a real abject thing where we didn't have a ruck like we were having to. Pal Pepper was that. Remember when we played down in Geelong? No, not last year, the year before. Pal Pepper took a lot of ruck hits, and there was like I think we went down there with like a hybrid ruck style because we didn't really have whether
yeah.
Lysett was out of that game, I think, and we didn't really have anyone else, and yeah, so not since Paddy Ryder was obviously
Yeah,
a
we just popped back
great
in
tap.
timeline.
Yeah, he was great, but then he was limited. Like his injury issues were there, and then you got to go back to almost like Brendan Lade and his connection with Sean Burgoyne to get that real like you know
Mm.
that
Lobi's
feel.
2014 year was
Yeah, that's right. I
fantastic.
was trying to think.
It
I was
gets
trying
lost
to
because he
think who
fell
was
off
in
a
between.
cliff.
Yeah, I was trying to
Yeah,
think who was in between, and yeah, Lobe was
yeah.
but like he was incredible that
Who's
year, and
now the
we
ruck coach,
yeah
I
yeah. So
believe.
mate, yeah, no, he is at the club, isn't he? Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he is. Yeah.
yeah. Interesting, Matthew Lobe. That was a great Facebook page back in
Yeah.
the day. Bring that back. I know it wouldn't hit as well because
It
he
did
hasn't been.
when he came back to the club,
It popped up a
whoever runs that
bit.
Facebook page, yeah, wrote a few statuses about how excited he was to be back at Port Adelaide
Oh,
and
okay.
blah blah
Yeah.
blah.
No, I got to go back for a scroll through that page if it's still there, just to reminisce about how fun that was. Um, but yeah, no, you're right. It's really as you mentioned, there's some AFL talk out there, Kane Corns included, and I get the idea of depending on what your balance around the field is, how much you need to invest in your ruck stocks based on your overall balance and what you can get away with. Um, because even Max Gawn at Melbourne's obviously just a generational ruckman, and he's
Yeah,
does great things for them. But then it's just like if that's a you've got to hit with just luck on that with as a draft pick or as a recruit or whatever. And
sure.
you see guys like Brody Grundy get moved around twice in 3 years. It just goes to show that sometimes it's more about fit rather than talent. Because Brody Grundy's clearly an incredible talent of a ruckman, but like he
Yeah,
just didn't find a fit. Whereas we've just Soldo's found a fit reasonably well with us in his early years. How that goes on, early years, early weeks. But yeah, Vicentini can come in and play such an incredible role down in Geelong against a team that is,
yeah,
so it goes to show it's just sometimes about coaching, as you said, coaching and stuff like
yeah,
that
sure.
does a lot of work. So as his career goes forward, as we hope, seeing this, we all hope he has a great career going forward with us. Um, it remains to be seen when he gets tested. It's always the testing. Once you've come into the league and teams start taking notice, how you
That's
response
right.
against whatever comes goes with it. But yeah, I can't be more. It's really nice to go three deep in the rock still, like, and then
Yeah,
have this question about what we do going forward if Vicentini's fit. So
and then it comes down to culture, yeah,
yeah,
because being
yeah,
third fiddle is yeah, interesting. And usually when you see people depart, that's
mm,
where you hope, yeah, your club culture is good enough that everyone's in the know and comfortable with where they sit in the pecking order.
mm,
But I guess what this first 9 weeks has shown is that your opportunity can come whenever, and when you get that opportunity, you can take that number one spot because you're all offering your own thing.
mm.
So it's an interesting spot to be in. from a point of view of the ruckman.
Yeah. You brought up Josh Sin before and talking about the draft year, and we have to give him and he had 16 disposals, 415 meters gained, 68% efficiency. His dash of, we've all been, we've all known he's got this dash of speed, and um, his run off halfback was really, really fun to watch. That big body of his, and it's funny because I've just mentioned the sports cards before. I've got a couple of his signed his rookie cards, and he's got the long hair on it, and it was really
Yeah.
alarm because that's how I picture him because I bought a couple of the cards, and that's just how I forever remember a player sometimes when I've got the card, and yeah, him coming in with he looks like a grizzled veteran all of a sudden, even though he's only really early in his sport career. But yeah, he showed a lot. He wasn't. I don't think he was exceptional in any way, but I think he was a plus.
Serviceable.
He was serviceable and a net positive to the early investment in the game we had to take the game
Sure.
on. He was
Yeah.
right in the mix of understanding what the plan was and driving the ball forward. And I said 400 plus meters gained. Um,
Oh.
so is
Yeah.
it? Yeah,
I'll admit I confused him for Ryan Burton a lot
yeah.
throughout the night.
The short
And I
crop
was
of
like,
the short crop of
it was the
hair.
short
Yeah,
hair.
yeah, yeah.
One's a right footer and one's a left footer. But it just kind of shows he has kind of bulked up a little bit too.
Yes, he has. Yeah,
But I
yeah.
was like, oh, it'd be good to see Sin get involved in the game. And then he got a possession, and I was like, yeah, Sin. And then at the end of the night, he's had 16 disposals on a halfback. That's good. Like
hmm
at one point, I was like, oh, he hasn't bloody touched it. That's on me. That's
Yeah,
on me.
because
But
you thought Ryan Burton was having a 40 disposal game.
just on Ryan Burton, I thought he
I
was
thought
also serviceable. There was a couple
Mhm.
of times he went back with the flight, and I was like, that's it. That's it. Like, that's what
that
we want. That's what people want to see. Just a bit of guts. But
that
back
was
on
gonna
Sin,
come up, yeah. But yeah, back on
we
Sin.
could talk about everyone. Like, listeners, strap in. No, we're going through the list. No, but we're on a time limit.
Mm.
um, but it's back on Sin. I mentioned in one of our previous episodes, might have been the preseason episodes, he had a press conference at the start of the year, and there was a certain level of frustration or depressed frustration and
hmm
determination with how he was conveying his answers to the journalists in that press conference. And it just kind of showed like it would be a very frustrating time being Josh Sin, obviously a high draft pick with a lot of talent. And I think it was maybe Dave Lloyd or whoever runs the Port Adelaide supporters page. I think that might actually be Dave Lloyd on Facebook. Mentioned that he has the dirty word of potential
hmm
attached to him. Ken kind of alluded to that in his press conference too before the game, or after the game. I can't remember, but yeah, Josh Sin's press conference at the start of the year, it just showed that he's sick. Yeah, to me, he's sick of being the guy on the sidelines in the rehab group. He just wanted to hit the ground running, make an impact, and then if he got the opportunity at AFL level, play his role and actually show what he can do. And
Mm.
yeah, I thought that, like you said, it wasn't a fantastic, like it wasn't a BOG worthy game or anything like that. It was a step in the right direction
Mm.
for mine.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. He, as I said, it was a net positive to what we were doing, in that first half, and like even in the latter stages of the game, sometimes when you're defending like you have to against a team making a run, as Geelong were, you're
Yeah,
just looking for guys not to stand out for making mistakes, and he didn't stand out for any of that. And touching
that's a
it,
good point.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So and yeah, overall, just for him coming in, and again, kind of like Vicentini, it's funny that they're both from the same draft year as well, that you brought up. For them to both come into this side, and to go into the cauldron that is Kardinia Park on a Friday night footy against a team that's playing damn good foot, like a Geelong team that we expect of the last 15, 20 years, like that kind of Geelong team, for them both to not be overawed by the occasion, is really, again, a plus point to the coaching preparation. Whatever we've criticised, and we will continue to criticise when it doesn't look like it's done the job, but on this week you have to give the plaudits to everyone. It's everyone that worked with this group to get them set up for this game. Um, yeah, everyone has just prepared impeccably well, and especially when you got guys coming in to play, that have sub 10 games in their career. Like that's, incredible. It's
Yeah,
for them to have the impact they did. Like Vicentini was a focal point of the game, obviously as a ruckman, but yeah, Sin's out there with 16 disposals at reasonable efficiency and getting a lot of meters gained for us going forward, which is part of the drive. The drive we had in that first half was the constant
hmm
drive to get the ball forward at good pace and at
it's
regularity.
part
And
of his role.
yeah,
Yeah,
he was a part of that. And his speed that we've to have a reasonably sized fella have that kind of speed and dash off halfback is, if he can kind of keep putting it together, he's going to be he's got that weapon potential.
well, and
Which
I don't think
again,
at any
you
stage he
said,
redlined, so it'll
yeah,
be if he gets an extended run, and he might not, but if he does, yeah, it'd be fun to see
yeah,
him
it'll be
like
interesting.
really like max out and see show what he's capable of in that regard.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There's
What were
a
you going to say though?
What was I going to say? Oh yeah, I was going to
Yeah,
say, yeah. When you got guys like Bergwijn on the wings, and there's a lot of guys that have
yeah,
gone out of the side recently because of injuries and whatever issues, whether it be Lockie Jones, Bergwijn. Yeah, the mix when if we, fingers crossed, knock on wood, that we do get to a point of reasonable fitness. There's a lot of selection, the good headaches to have when guys
yeah,
like Josh,
absolutely.
and that's a good thing that Josh can come in and at least put his, put his magnet on the board and say, "Hey, look, I'm here, and look, this is my small resume so far, but that's pretty impressive." So, food for thought for the staff. Um,
Absolutely.
I'm not. I'm keeping. I know people are probably thinking, "Oh, you haven't talked about Ollie Wines and stuff all that much." We'll get into. I think.
We will.
Yeah, I know. I know it's going to
We
be. I
will.
sometimes try to hold off on a statistical deep dive on those guys, knowing when they're going to be in the votes. Um,
Are
so
they?
that's it. I like
I think
him.
it's a good chance to
I like
Yahtzee, I reckon, this week.
yeah. That'll be interesting. Because there was a lot of guys I was trying to squeeze into those 1-2 spots. So that was a tough one for me, but we'll see. Um, I think before we get into, and I'll give you a chance to anything else that you've got, but I guess the big discussion that's come out of the game, and not that we like talking about opposition stuff too much, but I think the parallels that have been drawn with Port Adelaide and the Alir and Lockie Jones thing from last year with the showdown concussion, the 100K fine that we got, the Jeremy Cameron, uh, I put it on Twitter that his head struck oil, is how hard it hit the ground. Um,
Yeah, Daniel Day-Lewis is like
yeah,
coming up to him and going, "Hey, how you doing?"
yeah. I'm trying to think of quotes from that movie, but I haven't seen it in a long time.
I
That
drink your milkshake.
yeah,
That's the
yes,
best one.
that's it. Yes, that's oh my god, just that is
There will be blood for those that don't know, and
yes.
go watch it if you don't know,
Mm.
because it's a fantastic movie.
Yeah, and it's loosely based on an Upton Sinclair novel called Oil with an exclamation mark on it, which he was a great writer from the early 20th century that just had his finger on the pulse of Americana at the time and what was going on. But yeah, just fucking great movie. But yeah,
This is a pop culture podcast for the just
we're
yeah.
somehow fitting in a lot of pork content and just a lot of
This
random
is going to be
pulls
a
from the pop
3 hour
culture.
episode.
Yeah. But yeah, just I find it incredible, and it's not to try to pull back from what we did last year because we did make a mistake, we erred, and we took our licks. But the fact that we're not seeing the same thing, like that was meant to be the statement, wasn't it? That's what we were told. That's what all the media was saying is like Port Adelaide they're gonna have to take their licks here because we need to stamp this,
Yeah,
and and
they're the example that
yeah, and then
we're
what do we
setting.
what do we get now? Is the AFL was content with how it played out. and that's just a short statement. That's it. And and then something about there being a head injury assessment being taking place on the field. That's fucking bullshit. I would fucking stomp on that right now. How can a hit it? Like I watching the game back today and just seeing the doctor try. Brad Close at one point, I think it was Brad Close was kind of blocking the doctor at one point from
Yeah,
getting to.
yeah, the
He was trying
doctor,
to get in the way.
that's
I was just like, what the
ridiculous.
fuck? And like the doctor's trying to get through to Cameron and talk to him, and Cameron's kind of walking away, and Brad Close is getting in the way, and the doctor's just like, no, I need to talk to him still because I'm apparently in the middle of a head injury assessment. I'm like, no, you're fucking like this is fucking bullshit. So I was
Yeah, the
wondering
first
if,
time he went out, he kind of just pat him on the bum and was like, "You're all right, mate." And
yeah.
then he tried to go back out again, and that's when, yeah, what you were talking
Just-
happened.
and Cameron, to be fair, like I watching it back today, I was just like, he looked reasonably about his wits, but when he got up, like obviously the head hit was jarring. He lays down for a second, looks sore, and then when he gets up after, he's a little bit slower around a stoppage that's there, which sometimes the big men, if they're floating around the back, they can be. So we'll give you that caveat. But then they zoom in on him a couple of times, and he was a little wobbly. There was a little wobble of, and that should be enough for you to say, yeah, you need to drag him off the field. And um, I'm both concerned with obviously and he does have a concussion now. It was delayed symptoms, and then you have the twats on.
Bizarre, right?
Yeah,
Like,
you have the twats
geez, what a
on,
shock.
and that was the thing is like because I think if my memory serves, Aaliyah never actually ended up with concussion symptoms last year. Like he was, I'm trying to
He
think
was left out as a precaution.
as a
Yeah,
precaution because of the
I
optics.
should have
Yeah,
looked it up
I was trying to find stuff
because
because
he missed
I
next week.
yeah he
Yeah.
did, but it was out of an abundance of caution due to the whole situation, I believe, and the
Mm.
fact that he had they were like no he doesn't but yeah it was. I find it quite alarming that we're at this place, and then just watching the discourse after. I am glad to see a few media people are saying Ginniver was obviously always good in that corner. He's just like yeah what. And interestingly
What's the
enough,
difference?
Graham Corns was
Cornsey.
Cornsey was on it too, and Cornsey put the tweet out and was like, "What's the difference?" And Ginniver in his replies was geography with a shrugging emoji. Just
Mm.
um, love
Real
Timmy G.
essay
Yeah,
areas there.
but when you've got Timmy G and Graham Corns agreeing on something that's so specifically Port Adelaide, it means like it's
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, it must be
Um
serious and yeah.
yeah. And that was
Um,
my tweet I put out, and before I let you go, I was just like, yeah, I I think Port Adelaide probably I can understand if they don't push it too much because they're probably just like we just
they
need to
probably won't. They'll probably keep their
not
nose clean.
because it's politics, right? You not be pissing off the lead guy in whatever
City
political party
Hall.
you are in City Hall or AFL House as it be. But geez, I'd be internally I'd be very dirty at the. I would imagine there's a lot of dirty, um, you know. Pretty angry people at Port Adelaide right now,
Yeah.
seeing
Yeah,
this
yeah,
play
yeah,
out and thinking
absolutely.
that we've copped $100K fine.
Chris
Fifth,
Davis, yeah, he'll probably be fuming.
yeah, like they're having to work out their soft cap issues because of 50. I think 50K was from the soft cap. I can't remember what the exact machinations of it
Yeah, and
were,
then
but
50K was suspended, I think.
yeah. So, but then the next one down the road happens. The club is going to look back to this if they get cop a similar one. They're going to be like, well, the optics of that one were pretty similar, but you're content with that. So this is just the can of worms thing that you and I have talked about in a completely separate situation with the Power Pepper suspension thing, but somewhat similar in the overall scheme of things. Just the AFL keeps somehow, for some reason, doing the like pop culture reference again. Sideshow Bob in like the field of rakes, just walking around, stepping on rake, like just what. Look, you've got that on point. I'm going to bring back the
I
Jurgen.
love The Simpsons.
But yeah,
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
it's incredible.
That's a great analogy, though. The AFL continually just, yeah, they do just step on rakes. So how does this keep happening?
Yeah. Well, there's
Yeah,
the
but I
consequences
watched
of my own actions thing as well.
I actually, yeah. Um I watched on the couch and I don't know if you have as well, but
I didn't get to that one. I
yeah,
was going through my shows, and the on
yeah.
couch was the last one I hadn't gotten to yet. So
Yeah, but Gary Lyon was pretty. He had a moment. He started the show off actually and was pretty scathing in his assessment with the whole situation. And he was part of the Fox team on Friday night as well, and
Yes, he was
he
skating
was
on. I
he was
watched
asking a few
that. Yeah.
questions. Yeah, he went hard on the couch, and so I have a personal friend who's played a lot of football between SA and NT and otherwise, and he's actually had quite a concussion battle himself for the last
Mm,
18 months. He's battled constant migraines for the best part of that 18 months and hasn't been able to play footy the whole time. And I've said in private that to some other friends of this mutual friend of ours as well, that it's not going to be like the AFL, it's not going to be taken seriously until the AFL treat a concussion as if it's a hamstring injury. And
mm.
I don't know if vindication is the right word because I've said it in private, whatever. I could be making that up for all everyone knows, but that's kind of how I viewed it. Like if we're really going to get serious about head trauma injuries, they have to start treating them as if it is akin to another bodily injury that
Mm,
they put a lot more effort into citing, managing, and rehabbing. And Gary Lyon actually brought up that same point last night in his assessment. He said if someone had a minor hamstring strain or a nick in their hamstring, or they felt a bit of tightness, they go straight off the ground, they go down into the rooms, and they get assessed for it at length.
mm.
And then you might be keeping that player out for 3 weeks potentially. Jeremy Cameron whacks his head on the ground, and although he might look pretty okay, I'm pretty sure in the events shortly after, he was pointing to make a lead for an inside 50, Jeremy
Mm.
Cameron. But yeah, Gary Lyon made the point of saying that the HIA or apparent HIA went for 39 seconds. And again, if Jeremy Cameron pulled up lame and he said his hamstring is a bit tight, he's getting taken straight off the ground, he's going down into the rooms, and he's getting a proper assessment done. And just bring it back to Port, I've seen a lot of comparisons have come up, obviously, and I think friend of the pod Timmy Nash made the point of saying that we actually took Aaliyah off. No matter
Mm.
what you think about how serious it was in comparison, we actually took him off. And
Yeah, and Mark
a
Fisher
lot of
sat
people
down with
are,
him and made an old
yeah,
school judgment call based on his experience, which he should have followed the protocols, but he was still, I think he was still probably just doing what he just didn't use the protocols, and that's on him still. He should have used the AFL mandated protocols, but then this
yeah.
situation just makes a mockery of those anyway. Like he
And I
still
think
did had a better effort at it than whatever Geelong did, and I don't put that on the
yeah.
Geelong. I don't put that
And
on the
I don't want to
Geelong doc.
compare doctors
No, I
and
don't put that.
situations.
I
I
don't put
think a
that on
lot
the
of the
Geelong
criticism is
doctor
going
either.
to the
It's
AFL. Yeah,
mhm.
yeah.
They
And their
he was even
policy.
rocking. Yeah, because he couldn't. There's no rules in place because there needs to be a rule in place that the doctor can request, like, and just go to the umpire and say, no, you need to. I need this guy. But there's this grey area of like, oh, if I go out there and talk to him and like I can't really get him off the ground, like what power do I have? It's
Yeah, I
that
can't
there's no.
grab him. I can't carry him off.
Yeah, because geez, that
Yeah.
would have made a situation if he just said grabbed his arm and Cameron had been like, no, fuck off, this is
Put
a
him in a
tight game.
headlock.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, no, continue. I kind of butted in there, but yeah, it's
No, that was the crux of it though,
it's
is
the
that yeah,
AFL. Yeah,
no one's necessarily blaming Mark Fisher last year, the Geelong doctor this year, necessarily Cameron, Aaliyah, Lockie Jones.
certain Twitter accounts
But
aside,
like
but
they've all said in the criticism is if you really want to be serious about it, he has to come off the ground. They may
mm,
do the assessment and go, you're all good.
mm,
But the fact of the matter is the optics just look fucking terrible when, yeah, you've had something very recently in the grand scheme of things where you've come down hard on one club because they haven't shown all their due diligence, but you give another club an out because apparently they have done their due diligence, but it just looks ugly
yeah, and
and
the eye
second
test,
rate.
yeah, and the what the AFL
Yeah.
did was essentially go the eye test for Port Adelaide didn't work. The optics were
Yeah.
bad, and the subsequent fallout was bad as optics for the AFL. But this week they've gone, the optics are fine
Look
for us,
good.
even though the same fallout is happening. It's just, it doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense. And again, the AFL is just, yeah, as
I
we
don't
said.
think many people agree with it
No,
across
no.
the board.
Generally, apart
Like,
from a few trolls that have popped into the Twitter mentions and started talking about the comparisons again with talking about Ilya and Lockie Jones, it's just incredible that some people just like to beat up on that. But yeah,
mm.
it's concerning. We don't bring it up to be like to shit on it. And again, I started off by saying like I happily handed over that 100K last year. I was fighting back last year against the fucking draft pick stripping and all that doomsday scenario stuff. Like dumbasses on Twitter were like trying to have the club ruined for 10 years over it. I was just, yeah, the financial sanction was appropriate and acceptable and readily accepted for what we didn't do right. But
Draft picks.
all you want to
Fucking
see,
hell.
yeah, all you want to see is the consistency, as we've talked about suspensions and stuff like that. And once
Or
again,
if you
yeah,
say you're going to take something serious, actually fucking take it
yeah,
serious.
yeah, exactly. Because it's just the immediate vision of it it wasn't like it took 20 replays. The replay made it look worse, but when I was
Mm.
watching live, I was like, geez, that's a fucking whack.
Ooh,
Like,
that's bad. And when you
yeah,
take into consideration, like a lot of people have said, is that he had actually had two head knocks.
yeah.
Excuse me. He had two head knocks. So
Got a free kick one from one of them.
take it seriously. Yeah, which is bullshit.
Hmm.
Yeah.
But yes, that was me. I was being there was a little bit light-hearted moment at the wrong time because you were right. They need to take it seriously. And
I've
yeah, that
said
was
all I really want to say. Like, it's
yeah,
just a bad look. I think a lot of reasonably minded people would agree that it's a bad look. It doesn't pass the pub test, and
yeah. Which,
the
as we all know,
AFL behind closed doors, I'm sure, would be saying, come the end of the season, we need to change this. No
mhm,
matter what we've said in public, which is stupid. Yeah, we need a
yeah,
rule.
yeah. And I think even you and I sitting here as just pundits watching, fans with memberships watching on from the couch, we can already look at it and say these are some ways that we can make this a lot more easier to manage and follow. And like I said, umpire having the power for umpires, a doctor to say, I need to see this player, and if this player isn't cooperating, the umpire can blow the whistle and say stop the game. Like that's a very easy thing. And then if the player continues to fight against the game being stopped, then that's like, well, that's even more evidence that maybe you have a head injury because you're not aware of the what's going on right now. So, yeah,
Mm.
that's all. I thought it would be most times you'd kind of just go, it's a situation in a game, but the fact that it's become such a parallel, the parallels have
Well, and
been
if we
drawn
didn't
very,
cop what we copped as a club last year, we may not have
yeah,
touched on that point
yeah,
at
because
length. But
this
yeah,
might have
we
been the
copped it, and now we're looking at it going, well, hang on.
why were we the
Yeah.
flashpoint and then you've gone backwards? That's just it's ridiculous. So yeah, for those out there listening, it's just another eye on watching the AFL and their inconsistencies and the unfortunate things that we love this sport and we love our team, but the league sometimes really leaves a lot to be desired. The league that we have to play in because it's what exists leaves a lot to be
And
desired.
remind everyone that it is, in fact, a professional league, believe it or not.
Yeah, yeah, you'd be mistaken and you'd be forgiven for being mistaken at times as to
Yeah,
how it's
yeah, yeah,
going.
absolutely.
I feel like we need to get into this categories, and I think a lot of what we've got left is going to come up in this stuff.
Yeah,
So we're going to go with
absolutely.
this,
Let's get going.
yeah, spotlight first as always. You get to go first this week. So who have you got for
Oh, yes.
going nicely for you currently?
Well, both of my choices are at two polar opposite ends of the age scale, but round one, my
Love
first
that.
spotlight, I had Jackson Mead as my round one spotlight,
Mm,
and I'm just going to sit on the fact that I called it from round one. Having a midfielder playing in the midfield is like a non-negotiable, and it's warming to see. It was warming to see in round one, although he was still finding his way in our midfield. And
hmm
again, this is the game that he should have played last week. He should have been given the opportunity to play a whole game in the showdown. We need to move on. It didn't happen, but he got given that opportunity this week and he played fantastically.
Both hands.
Um, took it with both hands. Yeah.
Mm.
He had what some believe is a breakout game. 22 disposals, I believe. He went at 86% disposal efficiency. Among the rest, 7 contested possessions. He actually had, I believe, 7 tackles as well. Excuse me. It's just like for a guy, again, and I've brought this point up before. For a lot of people, he probably would have been in there on their radar to perhaps delist at the end of this year or when his contract expires. I'm not actually sure when that is.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
he's been playing out of position
Mm.
prior to this year, but they're putting a midfielder in the midfield, and now he's actually being able to use his attributes and his knowledge of the position and utilize it to good effect.
Mm.
So he had a fantastic game. He contributed to the win.
Mm.
Like he played his role. He contributed to the other thing was he had 26 pressure acts, which
Mm.
is best on ground for Port Adelaide. So father-son story again, fucking awesome for our club. Like these are the things that just like we as a Port Adelaide Football Club, as us as fans, like we get to go like he's one of us. He's one of
Mm.
us. We have brought him up. Like we feel like we saw his dad. He got 3 Brownlow votes in the first showdown. Like
Mm.
he was in our first AFL team.
He was
Now his son is playing for us. Like
our first best
we
and
get
fairest
that
winner, wasn't
nourishment.
he?
I thought he was, but I didn't want to say that in case I was
That's what's
wrong.
in my mind. Is like I used to get the Power to the People magazine. Shout out to those that remember that
Yeah,
one.
yeah, right.
Yeah, I swear
Like,
he was on the front of one of those, like with a body painted Guernsey on him, like celebrating the fact he won the best and fairest. But it could have just been a Darren Mead.
yeah,
Could have just been
right,
a Darren
right.
Mead
Okay.
article too.
Good
But
body paint.
yeah, yeah. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. No, like yeah, no, I
Um,
was just like, that's hot.
yeah. It's
Um,
just like giving a guy a chance who hasn't lit the world on fire in his first handful of years. And we touched on the fact that he had a pretty serious spleen injury.
yeah.
Could have lost his life
Again, yeah,
almost.
his old man Darren Mead having to find him in the bathroom and take him to
In the
hospital. Yeah.
bathroom, just passed out on the floor. Like,
Mm.
but yeah, like this is what we love about our club. Like we've got history, we've got roots from a family perspective. Like
Mm.
it's just what brings us all together. And to see Darren Mead's son Jackson play a game like that, I couldn't be any more happier for him and how he performed. And
Yeah.
he was my round 1 spotlight, and I'm gonna carry that flag hopefully until the end of the season. I hope he has unlocked just
Yeah,
yeah
he's put his
a
name up there for
fantastic run.
finding a way to, and yeah, again, we've talked about it earlier in the podcast with the selection squeeze that could come if this squad gets to the
Yeah,
point of great
and
fitness.
he
But
yeah yeah
but you know, it being the fact that we've seen over the years, especially these days, the AFL is such a sport of attrition, and particularly as we were talking about concussions. Technically, well, Cameron's going to be out this week. In fact, his head knocks are taken more seriously most of the time, and players do miss more time with things like that too. You do need to have a deep squad, and Mead's really put his hand up in this game. He'll come up later again. My one for going nicely, and it's a guy that we've talked about at times this year. I wanted to just after his game, I wanted to bring him up because we've talked about him in a negative, well, not negative, we're constructively critical.
Yep.
But Ryan Burton, I thought had probably, considering the
Oh
occasion,
wow.
yeah, no, I like to when someone's been on the other side of the coin, if they have a good game, particularly like
Yeah,
if it
just
had
want to see how
been
they respond to our
yeah,
criticism.
yeah. There was one moment early in the game I just thought he got caught in possession. He still does have that little bit. It wasn't perfect. Like I'm not going to give him that, but he had 23 disposals. He had 5 marks, 6 rebound 50s. 78% disposal efficiency, 5 score involvements, 7 intercepts, and I think 400. I hadn't meant to write it down. I think he had 450 to 500 meters gain as well. Just that's what you want from the Ryan Burton role. along with the fact that I thought his pressure and his intensity, as you said, going back that you mentioned it earlier, going back to
Yeah,
the
I'm glad I
fight a
brought
little
that
bit.
up now.
Yeah, yeah. I when you brought it up, I was like, yes. Um, so his all round game, as far as his intensity and his investment in the contest was there, which is sometimes
Yeah,
what we do
yeah,
criticize him for at times.
very
A
cool.
little bit, sometimes we go, downhill skier or whatever. But he was ready for the contest, and his all around game around that benefited that as well. Like I said, those stats were that's kind of what you want from him, what role he plays. Get plenty of the ball when you need to, as far as your defensive work, getting your 7 intercepts. Then if you're getting the rebound 50s, getting forward into score involvements, getting the meters gained, and your disposal efficiency is getting close to 80%, which is so you're not burning the ball over and over again or anything like that. Especially when you're getting 20, once you're getting 20 plus disposals, if you're still operating close
Yeah,
to 80%,
yeah,
that's
I
you're
agree.
getting a lot of the ball and you're using it pretty well in that time. So yeah, had to get we've been critical of him because I think we've talked about it. We think his best football could be borderline all Australian if he can put it together.
Oh, fucking absolutely.
So
Some
because
of
he
his
has
games in the past have been electric.
yeah. So this is what we want to see now. Just if he's doing that for the rest of the year, I'd be fucking stoked. So yeah,
Sure,
had to give it for
absolutely.
him for going nicely after some lean weeks in the earlier parts of the season.
Yeah, and due criticism. No
Absolutely.
one is immune, as we've said before.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Onto my watch.
Hmm.
Um, it's gonna hurt, but what are we doing with Charlie Dixon?
Yahtzee.
Like, yeah, I had a feeling that
We
that
can,
may come
yeah,
up because yeah, everyone else like did their job, and
yeah.
I'm not saying that Charlie didn't do a job because he had some good moments, and I think he got subbed off in the last quarter.
I
Pretty
completely, I
traditional
completely
subbing.
forgot to see. Yeah, he did. Yeah, I remember seeing him on the bench, and
Yeah,
he's like,
I just
"Yeah,
watched the
now
last quarter. I actually know he didn't.
you brought it." Yeah, he's like clapping behind the bench. He's like, "Yeah, let's
Yeah,
go,
yeah,
boys."
he's still trying to
Yeah,
get that, bring that
which
energy from the back bench.
fucking love
This is
that.
why we
Good on
love him.
Charlie.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but
Um.
again, it's just like they apparently have his rest schedule, if you want to call it that, where they've got him pegged for some games that he's going to miss. But he clearly injured himself during the week, and sure, you might have him pegged to rest during the North Melbourne game, for example,
mhm.
that we have in a couple of weeks. But if he's injured, don't fucking play him. Like,
This is what
just
we've been talking about all
rest
year,
him
isn't it?
then.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you got like you just it's the whole Rosie thing a little bit, like,
Hmm.
and it's going against what you have said as a coaching group coming into the season. It's like we're not gonna ruin him. Like,
There was
on
a
one hand, I get it. Like, we're going to Geelong, we need our weapons in place. We need to impose ourselves early, as their game plan kind of showed. But like, have some faith in the rest of the team because we've shown on many, many occasions that even with Charlie out, we with the right game plan, we're still quite formidable. And just on a side note, like, how good did Willie and Todd look in particular when we're moving the ball quickly into the forward
hmm
line?
Yeah,
Like, it
when
just
Todd's getting
made,
out in the lead, it's just like it still wasn't enough opportunities for him. But yeah,
yeah,
he was
like
when
playing
there was
to
space.
his strengths.
Hmm.
Yeah. So I'm not necessarily shitting on Charlie's game in particular. He eventually got subbed out because he had minimal influence. It's a little bit on the club, like, and
Yeah, there
I'm
was.
watching Charlie because I don't want, yeah,
I can't
like,
remember who
sure,
it
you might
was.
have planned to rest him in 2 weeks' time,
Mhm.
but just rest him now because yeah, and then you go, oh, he's rolled his ankle. Like, if keeping Charlie out, he's rolled his ankle, he's done playing footy. It's just a bit of a flippant thing to say by Ken, and
Mhm. Yeah, that's one of
it
those
didn't
ones.
work. Like, it was another thing that just didn't work after taking the risk. And for an otherwise fantastic game, and yeah, like we said, we could highlight every player on the
Mhm.
field. It's just a bit disappointing that he went in underdone and he eventually got subbed out. Like,
Yeah,
you could see it coming.
yeah, and there was a kick in. I can't remember. Was it Riola that was going into the pocket, or someone kicked the ball into the pocket early in that run? And Dixon, it was one of those balls into the pocket that a lot of fans hate, but Dixon had a clear run at it. He just couldn't get up any leg of speed towards it and ended up just dribbling out for a, what was it, forward 50 ball in. So it was we got the ball kept in there. But like, that's one of those ones that Charlie at full flight, I imagine he's going to charge out and at least he's either going to take it on the chest or he's going to at least get his mitts out in front of him to take a mark on the, out in front of his face on the lead. And he was 2 meters away from it when it dropped to the ground. And I was just like,
Mm.
I have that in my notes actually. Go back to Q1, I reckon. I'm trying to think. There was a point I remember making a note of it. I was just like, Dixon's, yeah, it was at the start of the second quarter. Yep, I've got it. I've found it. Dixon not moving super great, question mark. 19:07 to go in second quarter, kick into pocket so it was Rioli. So my
Yeah.
memory is working well for me at this point. But yeah, it was a ball into the pocket, start of the second quarter. Rioli kicked in there. It's just one of those ones that it was probably a little bit out too far in front of someone for it to be comfortable. But Dixon at his best, I think, takes it. So um,
Yeah.
yeah, and then he did have that great moment early in the game where he did that little ruck tap on the point square, like that ended up in a Rioli goal, I think, for our second or third one, early in the game there. Like he had his little moments, but overall he couldn't impact it. And yeah, you could say he's taken some defenders, which he would have been because just Charlie
Yeah.
Dixon, even
That's
at
what happens.
60% speed, the Geelong defenders still have to account for him because but he missed it. He missed his one shot on goal that he had, which, Charlie Dixon at full fitness is getting a lot more shots on goal with the amount of forward 50 entries we had.
Yeah, I still truly
Um,
believe that he's an absolute weapon when
yeah,
he's in
but
full flight, and
but
we
we
need
just
to
need to
preserve
manage
that.
him better. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah,
So playing,
absolutely.
yeah. So yeah, and yeah, Ken's comments were interesting considering he's only a week away from, you know, talking about Rosie and saying, "Oh, all the doomsayers." It's like, well, they were right on that one. So yeah.
Mm.
So yeah, I had him. I had him down for mine as well. He was my watch for some work. And again, it's not so much on him. It's maybe on him and the coaching, like because Dixon's always going to put his hand up. He seems like that kind of fella. Um, and he definitely seems. I remember when he had his big leg break injury from West Coast a few years ago.
Well,
I
that
went.
happened like right in front of me, so to
Oh,
speak, from 3 tiers up. But
yeah,
yeah, that was
I
ugly.
I remember going to the talking footy down at the Port Club back the old days of the Port Club now with all the development.
Right.
But it was him and Peter Laddams at night, and Dixon was still a couple of weeks away from coming back, but he just talked like they asked him about his recovery and got really dark for him because he was like, "Yeah, I was pretty fucking depressed." Like he's just like,
Yeah, well, he came out in a few
yeah,
interviews after that
yes, he
and said
did,
he had a
yeah."
serious
I could be
mental health
I
battle.
could be conflating that with, but he did intimate at that at the talking footy thing as well. Just
Mm.
like I was struggling, man. Like, and so he's a competitor and doesn't like to be out, so that's probably partly on him. But then the club needs to understand his body at this point and manage it better. So yeah, it's funny that we may not. It'd be interesting if we Yahtzee our Player of the Year votes, but we got a Yahtzee in there with that one, which is probably the only
Yeah.
one. Like maybe there was a
Yeah,
couple of others you
yeah.
could find, but it
I'm
was a pretty
happy for us to deep dive if we Yahtzee on a couple of spotlights.
yeah.
Because yeah, everyone else, you just go on, you could make a good case that they played a good game.
Yeah. Um, anyway, we'll get into the awards now, which would be fun, a lot funner than last week. I'll bring it up quickly. Last week, both of your nominations won last week, actually. Uh, HORNE-FRANCIS's goal that broke our almost two-quarter drought won with 83% of the vote over Todd Marshall's from 50 that I nominated out of the 5 goals we scored. So, um, and your Horn
God damn
Francis,
it.
yeah, and your Horn Francis run on the wing beat out the BZT contest on Dawson as well for the Sweeney for last week as well.
Yeah.
So 76% of the votes there. So yeah, it wasn't a great week for voting, but I appreciate
I
everyone.
think
Appreciate everyone that voted as well.
yeah,
Like there's
yeah.
not many people voted on Twitter this week. It was all on the Instagram voting actually.
Yeah,
So
I noticed that everyone was had the sads on.
just was like, no, we're not. But we've still got enough votes for it to
But
actually,
hey,
yeah,
we still gotta do it. Still gotta
yeah.
do it. Still gonna contribute to the end of the year.
Exactly. All right, goal of the week for this week, which is a lot more fun than it was last week, with us scoring 3 times as many. You get to go first on this one. I've got like 4 or 5 down that I'm just gonna. I know which one I'll choose based on what you choose, but you get to go
Yeah.
first.
Look, I'm gonna copy the Port Adelaide play of the day. Just the Rioli goal. where Dixon kept it in, just talking about Charlie.
Okay. Yep.
Hung it out to the left. They keep it in. Rioli kicks his second. What about that?
Yeah, just it was my first one that I wrote down. It was just awesome, not giving up on the contest. It was highlighted in the commentary as well. And otherwise gets punched through, but Charlie being Charlie kept it alive, and Willie was there, happily receiving it and
only an inch or two. Yeah, it's yeah, no, I love that one. That was one of many that I've wrote down. But yeah, it was Dixon having the presence of mind, obviously, as we've just talked about, even with his injury, to still be in the right place at the right time, show what we love about what his game brings, and keep the ball in play, and then just Rioli having one of, I think, his best games in Port colours. Was there to rove it and kick truly from snap it around the body as well. From what was relatively close range, but like being in a contest in play, like you still got to get on the boot pretty quick. So really well done. Just epitomised kind of our effort to the contest in every facet of play at that period of the game.
Yeah. Good point.
Jesus Christ, I've got a lot to choose from here. I'm going to go with, oh God, there's a few. Kane Farrell had a couple that, any other week that I'd probably be picking one of his.
One of them was Charlie goal assist.
There was, yes, it was. Yeah, he had a couple. Like, it's the thing.
He had three goal assists. I didn't even check that. It's just been our watch, but
yeah. And that's the thing, we're not saying
it was more on the club.
Yeah,
it was more on the club.
He still made his presence felt, which we love. Another one that I'd probably say as an honourable mention was HORNE-FRANCIS' opener for the game, like running in on 50, slightly on the outside of the boot. Really classy finish. And it probably is the more technically better goal than the one I'm about to pick. But I've talked about it on this podcast, probably with you a little bit, but I talked about it a lot last year as well, just when I was talking to myself in my own little echo chamber. Zach Butter's ability to, when he gathers the ball, to either get it onto, whether it's a handball out of the contest or get it on the boot, is really incredibly, again, wizardry is how quickly he can get on the ball, like gather and dispose. And his gather and snap.
Just to resurrect what they had. HORNE-FRANCIS hard at it, went and got it. Mullen into the ground, very close to being in the back. Snapshot high at ball. Wow. They've done it again. Butters was just terrific against the flow.
Well, if it's not HORNE-FRANCIS, it's Butters. They're both so dominant. Willie Rioli's been in there too, but HORNE-FRANCIS had the initial clearance, got it out. He has one step, throws onto the left boot. Tell you what, not a bad vice captain to step up when the skipper's out. He's been in everything tonight.
To the sound of the boos of the Geelong.
Yeah, I know.
To go with another pop culture reference, just like the guy in Gladiator, he's like the barbarian horde. It's just the boos raining down from the Coliseum of Kardinia Park, but Zach Butters just gathering and snapping, and he just pops it in the boot.
My second one.
Yeah, but that's good then, because that works. So you get both yours in. But Butters, just his ability because he's snapping, like it is pretty much just a whack it on the boot, but he's got his eye towards it. He knows what he's trying to do, and he executes. And
on the left as well, if you don't mind.
And you've got to, in games like this, as though you need to complement your goals from your set plays and your plays that you're wanting to make with those just ones out of the arse, and that's why you have players like Zach Butters being able to do that kind of stuff. So and I just love his celebration. Kind of runs away almost, he's just like,
are you surprised?
Yeah, this is me. So that's gonna be an interesting one, a fun one for the people to choose from, because we had plenty of goals. It was a tough one to actually narrow down, which is always a good problem to have.
Sure.
All right, the Sweeney. I get to go first in this one. I had a few, but I'm going to go the Vicentini tackle on Stewart, on Tom Stewart.
End of the ground. Stewart. Vicentini's got him in the tackle. It's a good lunging effort, and he gets congratulations from his teammate, and so he should. Otherwise, the Cats were away.
Good name for a footballer, that, isn't it? Dante Vicentini.
Sensational.
You just want him to have a big, long career with a...
Oh, was that yours?
Yeah.
Oh,
That was my first pick.
oh, I'd be interested to
I'd
see
love
what
it.
your second pick is. Then, 'cause
Yeah,
I
you-
almost went. I had it was 1A and 1B with my second pick. I'll give an honorable mention to my second pick once I know what yours is. What yours is after, if it's not that one. But yeah, that tackle on the wing early is obviously an All-Australian defender. Obviously, we've talked about McEntee's work on him, but Vicentini, again, that's that around the ground stuff that we were talking about. That stuff outside of what
just the
his actual
athleticism.
the craft was. The fact that he's chasing down an All-Australian defender and getting him on the wing, and I'm sure Tom Stewart
It
probably
didn't look like a lumbering ruckman.
no,
doing it either.
yeah, it wasn't like Scott
Came
Lycett,
with
like
some spice.
yeah. He moves in. He's got some decent sneaky pace on him, which will serve him well if he develops his body and is able to keep that as he's going forward. But yeah, love that. That was an early sign as to just what our intensity of the contest was, and the fact that we're, again, I mentioned earlier, Tom Stewart was probably turning around and going, "Who the fuck's this Jed McEntee kid?" And he probably turned around at that point and was just like, "Who's this fourth or fifth game?" I don't even know who number 38 in Port Adelaide is. Who are you? What are you doing?
38 and 44.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Jackson
40
Mead's 44. Sorry.
Yeah, 41. But yeah, he would have had the same reaction maybe to Jackson Mead too. Just
These are some high numbers to be fucking getting under my skin.
yeah, so, as we talked about a few weeks ago, it's the other guys. Yeah, so that's my pick for Sweeney this week.
Mine is, luckily you brought it up, it's Zach Butters' rundown on Cameron. So 2 chase down tackles this week to choose from.
Aaliyah comes at him, shrugs the tackle nicely. Cameron gets it back. Taken down in a really good Butters tackle. Great rundown. Missed Marshall with the kick. Rioli's already got a couple. Did that well. Measures it to Finlayson.
He was in Rioli. This is a great rundown from Butters. This has created a goal potentially for his...
Yeah,
awesome.
that was,
like we
that
said,
was
Cameron, an imposing figure. Zach Butters just being a pest and not giving up on the contest. Just, awesome moment.
Yeah, no, that was great. I'm looking forward to going back and snipping those clips for the podcast. Yeah, my honorable mention was I was going to be, if I end up being second, which I hadn't worked it out yet. I was going to just put the McEntee, the dark arts that we talked about earlier. On
it just
should I was just like, that makes me feel good when I see a fucking like a guy that's
just getting stuck in.
Yeah,
I liked it too.
Yeah,
I was like, fuck yeah, do more of that.
Yeah. I was swinging. All right. We'll dive into player of the year because we've got to get to we'll do a quick 10, 15 minutes on the Hawthorn game coming up afterward. But yeah, player of the year. You get to go first on this one. So I get to listen back intently and work out. I'll let you know as soon as it's a point of difference to mine. I'll just go, it's not Iartzi. Maybe.
Okay.
I'll let you go and then I'll see if I butt in or not.
Wait till the end. Yeah. My one vote, brought him up before, Jackson Mead, for all the reasons and whatnot I mentioned before. 22 disposals, going at 86%. Like I mentioned, the 26 pressure acts, 7 tackles, and 5 inside 50s, which led to 5 score involvements. So breakout game. Fantastic. So yeah, had to slip him in my votes. Don't know if I have any honorable mentions. You probably will. But yeah,
I did have
number
a few,
2,
but yeah, we'll get to them.
Yeah. Number 2, Willie Rioli. 4 goals, 3, 2 direct goal assists within 10 score involvements, 17 pressure acts as a forward, and 4 marks. Like, forwards get forgotten a lot, but you can't play a game that good and not get any votes.
It was decisive.
Yeah. Just, and again, like I mentioned in the Charlie watch, like, it just makes a huge difference to our overall like appearance when we're getting the ball in and use it and letting our forwards utilize their strengths. Like you mentioned, Todd with his leading, something that I absolutely picked up on, and Willie just putting it into space and letting him do his magic. Like, yeah, there was a game last year where someone mentioned after a good Willie game, I think it might have been against St Kilda we played in Melbourne, and someone afterwards wrote that like everyone has to have a Rioli on their list just for fairness purposes. Because when you get a Rioli in that mood and you're kicking it to him that well, mate, that's unstoppable. A fantastic game from him. Off the back of my 3, 4, and 5, which was my number 3, HORNE-FRANCIS, 26 disposals, 12 of those contested, 7 clearances, 6 inside 50s, 349 meters gain, 4 tackles and 4 marks. Just lit it up. Like, fantastic JHF game. I mentioned in our wrap up of the showdown that it's a bit of an indictment on us that a 20-year-old has to take the ball by the horn, so to speak. But if you got it, you might as well fucking use it. Like, the difference this week being that we didn't rely on him to create that spark. He just did it in conjunction with the 2 next obvious players that are coming up. But yeah, they put the clamps on him. And this was another point that I had in my notes was that
it was always a Mullen that came on.
Mullen came on, and now JHF is getting a tag. Like, credit to him. There's a lot of people you can tag in our team, and I guess it's a badge of honor that he copped that because he was one of the most imposing people on the ground in the first half. So
yeah,
that's probably what brought him back down. But he still had 11 disposals in the second half.
And a lot of those in the fourth quarter as well. Yeah.
Yeah.
And could have had 2 goals in that fourth quarter. So
true. True umpires.
Well, one of those he missed.
One of them was his fault.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, should have had a second one.
Yeah. Anyway, 4 votes goes to Zach Butters. He got 9 coaches' votes. Just put that there as a head note. 34 disposals, 15 of those contested, going at 70%, which is a lift from the showdown, I believe. 7 clearances as well. 527 meters gained, 9 marks, and 8 score involvements. Just a fantastic Zach Butters game. As captain as well, so the weight of captaincy is not really weighing down our C and our VC. He led by example, along with the McEntee tag job on Stewart. He was also assisting at a few stoppages as well when Stewart found himself up the ground. It seemed like a bit of a directive.
Smiling away the whole time.
But Butters, like, having McEntee play that role, it's just like Butters is just like, yeah, this is how we play kind of thing. And yeah, it was entertaining for sure. A lot of what Zach Butters does is entertaining, and I thought he was second best on ground, which leads me to my 5 votes, which is Ollie Wines. What to say? 33 disposals, 15 of those contested. Ollie Wines went at 87.9% disposal efficiency, everybody. So
I'm punching air right now.
yeah, like, for all his sub 60, 70 to 65% disposal efficiency games, just shot the lights out in that regard. 11 score involvements, 19 pressure acts, 7 tackles and 7 marks, and it was a travesty to see him get only 3 coaches' votes, was it? 3 coaches' votes? Come on, Ken.
Wait, did he get 3 or was it I've got it in there. I'm trying.
Yeah. Butters and JHF got 9 each.
That's right. I was trying to think of it. It was
coach. Yeah, I was so surprised to see that because Ollie Wines just had a quintessential Ollie Wines game. Brownlow, and like we were here sitting last week saying, we might not get Ollie Wines in Brownlow level
Yeah.
game, and we don't
And
necessarily need it.
And we've been
He's
reasonably
not
happy
gonna
with how he's
have
gone as well this year. Like
Yeah,
you and I
yeah.
have talked about it a lot this year. And
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought up the disposal efficiency. I have it in my notes, of course, and I did it in my little thing I'm going to start trying to do. I was just actually doing my stats dive while I was hungover yesterday morning, and I was just like, I should do a post every week about stats. So keep an eye out for that. A lot probably seen it already.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
But yeah, I made note the 87.9% disposal efficiency was second best to field for us, I think. I'm just doing a quick look back at the screenshot, but I think the only person that went better was Miles Bergman at 92%, which honorable mention to him. But yeah, beyond that, obviously Jackson Mead you mentioned was close behind at 86 as well. But it's been a knock on Ollie Wines and midfielders of his ilk over the years has been, disposal efficiency is the one thing that lets them down. Like, yeah, they get 35 disposals, but they kick it forward and, only a third of the time it just gets burnt and it's a terrible kick. But he went at 87. And I brought it up when you're talking about Jackson Mead before, I think someone else, Ryan Burton, when we were talking about him before as well. When you're having that much of the ball, your disposal efficiency number gets that much more important. And when you're getting 30 plus disposals and you're going at 87.9%, you are fucking having a fantastic game. And when you've got the reputation that you do of Ollie Wines of not being the best, and he completed it with the one goal shot and goal he had.
Oh, awesome.
As something that we've probably criticized at times. Sometimes his set shot finishing isn't great. He nailed that one.
He took the mark and he kind of landed in a netball fashion where you kind of split your legs and try and land as far back as you can.
Yeah.
So
and then he went back and then he went
to the goals as possible.
And then he went back and
he kicked the dirt out where his mark was. He's just like, I'm fucking lining up for goal and I'm going to kick it, and he did.
And it was
couldn't be any more happier with his game.
Yeah. We Yahtzee.
Yes, I knew that.
As soon as you had Jackson Mead at 1, I was like, "Oh, we're on here." Because that was the spot.
It was a good shot.
And I almost went with Willie at 1, and then threw Willem Drew in it, and then I ended up like in my shakeout, it's just Willem Drew got dropped out. And it's not again.
Willem Drew was in contention. His
honor mentioned
let him down this week.
Exactly, there was a few of those numbers that just kind of dropped him out, and I had to have Willie in there because at the end of the day, I was like, no, you've got to. We talk about it so often when forwards don't get as much of the ball sometimes, but what they do with the ball, when Willie's got 12 disposals, I think, but he's kicking 4 goals. He could have had 7 because obviously he missed the one at the end. Well, he didn't miss the one at the end. He just kicked it after the siren. One of his goals.
Sorry. Just to cut in as well.
Oh yeah, no, go for
it. Should have mentioned in the wrap up though. Late in the 4th, he's taken a mark in the pocket.
Should have kicked the fucking
kick the goal. Just you're premiership player. You're a senior forward. You're on a fucking tear. You're on fire. Do the job. Kick the goal.
Yeah,
I see what he was doing.
And it's always the thing is
6 times out of 10, Todd Marshall's probably taking that mark, and you're doing the team thing. But when the time calls for it, you take the opportunity, especially when you're having this type of game. Because take
the full 30 seconds,
you're in goal kicking form. Kick that goal. Sorry, that I just needed to put that out there.
That was one of the ones I have in my mind because I'm like, he kicked 4.
Could have had 9 goals.
So actually, so I'm like, so if you add the 1 on, if he kicks it 2 seconds sooner, he has the 1 at the end of the game. It's 5. He has that almost goal of the year where the guy, whoever's on the line, dives on it as he's tried to dribble it through from the pocket.
I think it was that Jack one. Henry. It got his armpit or something.
Yeah, basically. So that's 6. Then you go, if you take away one of his goal assists because he handballs off to Burn Jones, who's he's right in front, which selfless. I love that. I'm glad he did that.
And you brought up DBJ last week as well. It was good to see him. Being a beneficiary of that. And
then there's the miss there as well. So there's a very easy way to think that he could have had 6, 7, 8 goals, as well as the couple
10
of
goals.
So an incredible Willie game. he had 7 tackles with 5 of those inside 50 as well. So he was doing his, that pressure forward stuff that you want those guys to do when they're not getting the ball come to them as well. Yahtzee, it's incredible. I think you brought up most of the other stats that I had there as well. Obviously, honorable mention, I mentioned Willem. I thought Farrell was great as well. Kicked those couple of great goals from outside 50 with those twice from handballs. I think I wanted to bring up. I've already brought up Boak as Burton as in my spotlight, but Boak had 18 disposals, 7 tackles, 490 meters gained. Boak's obviously not the player that he sometimes gets lost in the mix because he's not who we remember, but he still had 18 disposals.
Boak was who I was alluding to with my spotlight.
Yep.
His first quarter in particular was electric, senior player setting the standard. It's what that senior like you were just kind of touching on. He's no Travis Boak of yesteryear, but that's the importance of seniority in your team. We had a job to do as a team, and as a senior leader, I thought he started the game fantastically well, and the rest of his game, clearly by what you've just said, was handsome. But loved the start when the game is there to be taken.
And the fact that he runs the game out pretty well, I think, as well. Again, not getting a whole lot of the ball. There's one other thing I had in my notes I just wanted to bring up before we get to Hawthorn here. Scrolling through again. Like I said, my notes are extensive. A lot of bullshit, but the one thing with Jackson Mead getting that one vote, I had 85% time on ground down in my notes as well, because the one thing with like Wines, Butters, and HORNE-FRANCIS, all of them are sub 80% time on ground. I think for Mead to spend that much time on ground, run out the game well, get those disposals, the efficiency, the score involvements. Again, that's what you do with your rotations. You want to keep those guys fit. Like they take JHF off for a few minutes, Butters as well, in that mid part of the fourth quarter, wanting to manage that part of it and then have them on the ground. That's good management. I'm not knocking that. I'm just like, it's more of a plus point to Mead's game is that he actually spent
I get
one of the larger percentages of time on ground, particularly for the position he was playing, and played the role he did. So I thought that was just something to note as well. It's one of those real, those time on ground stats sometimes, it's whatever. But I really enjoy. I always like seeing how much time they spend on ground,
it paints its own picture.
Yeah, based on the role they play as well. So I wanted to bring that up. But yeah, that's a good bowl on the win. Talking about some players that had some great games there, and I'm sure we could.
And just to finish off the Geelong game, leading, was it off the back of St Kilda? You were saying that, including St Kilda, for the 3-week period that we had at our disposal, we needed to come out of it 2-1, and then for the 5 weeks 4-1. And after the showdown, rightly or wrongly, everyone is obviously very disappointed, and it looked like we could go 1-2, but we come out of it 2-1 with a great opportunity now before the bye to set up the second half of our season.
And that's a great segue actually into talking about Hawthorn coming up this week on Sunday at 2:50 in the afternoon, Sunday 19th May at Adelaide Oval. Sir Doug Nicholls round to your Untitled Footy Club taking on Hawthorn. If I'm remiss in not knowing that Hawthorn have changed their name as well, that's my bad.
I don't think they have.
I don't remember seeing anything pop up, but obviously being Port Adelaide centric, I don't always see other club notifications. But Sunday afternoon game, looking like cloudy weather, but max of 19, minimum of 9 overnight. So hopefully we've been getting some pretty good weather throughout the start of the season. Haven't had, early last year we had that fucking deluge against the Doggies in gather round last year, so we'd had some pretty shit weather to start. But I don't think we've had a bad weather, like a real bad weather game yet, if memory serves me.
We have either. Like
So
it was
yeah,
a bit moist at the start of Friday night's game, and it's been a bit moist here and there for some other games. But yeah,
yeah, but
no
just
no
typical like
pissing rain.
it's early May, like you're gonna get some moisture around. Like it's not like that, yeah, like that deluge against the doggies when you got
Yeah.
Ken Hinkley on the field after chatting to JHF and just the highlights. Is all you can see
JJ,
is
yeah,
it's just like there's just rain
pouring
just
down.
pissing down over him
It's a
and pouring
sheet
over.
of grey,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, but yeah, great segue because I'm looking at now we've got Hawthorn this week, obviously, and then Kangaroos and Carlton, and that leads into the bye. So we're now next into another block of 3 games before the bye that we go. Obviously, best case scenario is 3-0, but we want to be at least 2-0 going out of
Sure.
this. 2-1.
Yeah.
Again, I don't want to sit there and say, oh, I'm already conceding to Carlton, but Carlton coming to Adelaide Oval, even if they're coming to Adelaide Oval there, and they're one of the top teams in the league this year, we have to give them that. So that game could go either way. But starting this week, and we'll focus on this week, Hawthorn, though in reasonable form over the last month of games, it's the kind of game that we need to be winning, I think. No, not I think. I'm a Port fan. I'm going to be biased to say we need to be winning every game. 23-0, 23-0. But yeah, it's you know, Hawthorn, while in reasonable nick, is still, obviously they've had a struggle start the season. Their wins, while quality, and they had that great comeback to almost steal the game against Collingwood in the gather round, which is
Yes,
the
they
one,
did.
which is the one game of the year that I've actually watched of them, because that was when I was doing Donny's podcast a few weeks back, and I was trying to watch every game, and I watched the last half of that live and just caught like a brief summation of the first half of that one. And so they're a team with quality and a bit of run within them, and obviously Sam Mitchell's trying to build something there. But yeah, I look at this going into this game. It's just before we get into our thing. Actually, I could just bring. No, I won't do that yet. They're in reasonable nick. They got a couple of injury issues. They got this injury update is from like last week. They haven't updated yet, so they've had maybe a Chol was 1 to 2 weeks. Mitch Lewis was 1 to 2 weeks last week. So whether they're probably a test at the moment. Will McCabe's out for a bunch of times. James Sicily was a late out against St Kilda as well. So you'd probably think he comes up for it, but he's also on the more senior end of things. So whether they, depending on what actually the laid out reason was, and if they find some subsequent stuff. So there's a couple of question marks there.
I think he did a shoulder.
Yeah, but then
shoulder niggle.
But then the fact that they were almost played him, but then didn't play him, it makes you wonder how serious it is. Or, but overall, obviously they've won some games over, and that's all you want from a team in their situation is winning those games against those teams around them. But that's when they can end up being dangerous if the confidence builds off of those results for a team like us, who's come off a good result and playing at home and Adelaide Oval again. Obviously, remember the travesty that was the 2022 game against them at Adelaide Oval and the Russell Ebert tribute match. That was rough. This is the first. Actually, no, we played them at Adelaide Oval again. That's the fixturing is weird.
We did.
Yeah, we've had 2 very polar opposite results against them against Adelaide Oval,
Yeah.
and we're getting them again at Adelaide Oval this year. So Carl Amon, in good form for him. Old friend Carl. He was actually there. I was just on perusing through their website as I do, getting prepared, and he was their fans MVP for their game last week. So, which I love seeing him playing well. No hard feelings for him. Jarman Impey obviously in there as well. So a couple of old friends.
Yeah, of course.
That we're getting to play against this week. How are you feeling overall about the Hawks this year? They started off rough, but I think they've kind of just back to where they probably want to be at this point of their rebuild.
That's probably where I see them too. That they've had some disappointing games, but they've had some equally promising and heartwarming for their fans type of games as well. I'm not sure where they sit on the ladder. It would be the middle of the bottom.
Yeah, I think they're
actually 15th. So
15th,
yeah. They are where I kind of expected them to be, and I don't expect them to be a huge threat, which is sometimes a bit dangerous to be in that headspace. But yeah, excuse me, like you said, they've won 3 out of the last 4. They would have built up some steam from that. Beating, was it one team that made finals last year, and the Bulldogs, who went into that game favourite against them. So, will they want to make up for last year where we banged on 100 points by half time, and kind of embarrassed them, and the game was done by that point? That's probably the glass half full from a Hawthorn perspective, but I just feel that we're far better than them. To put it quite simply, one of their key backs is out for the season. James Blank.
Oh yeah, hold on. Was it going
Yes,
through there?
James Blank.
Yes, yeah, ACL, yeah.
He's out for the season. He did an ACL, yeah, and so look, they're relying on Frost, not Marby Chol, Jath down back.
Is Jath going to be back? Because he only came back.
That's also an interesting point.
Yeah, he only came back into the VFL, I think, last week or the week before. So he hasn't made his way back. So, I mean, maybe they bring him back. But yeah, it's an unsettled back line.
Yeah.
That's
I
relying.
think they've been inconsistent for the most part, like a young team would be, or like you'd expect them to be. And for mine, we're at home, coming off a good win, which shouldn't matter. It should just be down to X's and O's, and we're a more experienced, talented, balanced team than them at this point in time, I feel. They'll probably get a few goals out the back, but I feel that we'll be probably a couple of goals better a quarter if we're using that metric from our start to the year. So look, we need a bit of a percentage booster too.
It would be nice after,
against Geelong, we scored 100 points again. We scored 100 points in the majority of our games, I think. It'd just be good to...
Adelaide aside.
Yeah, and I think, Melbourne, and maybe even St Kilda, we did.
Yeah, there was a few, but yeah.
Collingwood, maybe. Yeah, so maybe that's just pie in the sky. But I think the thing that has tempered it earlier in the season is that we've kept some teams to lower scores, and that's kind of evened out a little bit. So, yeah, if we're the team that we want to be, should be, again, same thing as I had coming into St Kilda. If we're the professional outfit that we expect to be and want to be, then we just simply win. We win well. We keep them to a low score, and we kick a decent score ourselves.
Yeah, which I think is leads into your thing for the week, right? Like it's just that.
Yeah, I pretty much covered everything that I had in mind for my thing. It's kind of how they come off the back of a warming part of their season and how we combat it.
Yeah,
if we expect to.
Yeah, and that's the thing is I absolutely agree. Is that's just if we're the team, and it's not to be derogatory to a team we're playing, but if we're just the team that we expect where we're at in our position of being a team on the ascendancy, this is especially coming off an impressive result as we've just talked about for a couple of hours. We need to be winning these ones and winning them in reasonable fashion. Yeah, like you said, a couple of goals a game better, goals a quarter better. If you just went at 2.5 goals a quarter better, you win by 10 goals. So it's just you gotta. That's kind of what you want to go out and what I'd expect. My thing to watch going into this game. Really interested to see what we do at the selection table, as we've kind of touched on as we talked about some of the performances that happened in the Geelong game. Dante Vicentini being one of them, Josh Sin, a couple of names that have just impressed enough in the game to give us food for thought. When you've got guys just looking at our injury list, Jace Burgoyne was had a groin injury coming out of the showdown. Is a TBC on his estimated return to the side, which means basically he's a test, could be good to go. Jordan Sweet was pulled out for illness. So again, you'd assume he's going to be fine for this week. It's not an injury of sorts, it's just pure illness. So that's 2 guys that are on the outer that are looking to come back into a side that have played really good footy. You've obviously will be Yahtzeed on that as as we did a lot in this episode with talking of the game on the weekend, in Charlie Dixon's role in the side as well, and probably his need to be managed, because we want to see Charlie Dixon fit at the end of the year. So that's three guys. We go Charlie Dixon, Josh Sin, Dante Vicentini that played in this game. Charlie Dixon obviously for different reasons, but Vicentini and Josh Sin for positive reasons that are in the side. That you've got guys like Jace Burgoyne and Jordan Sweet. And then I think Ollie Lord played in the SANFL this weekend as well, which didn't go well. Not for Ollie Lord, just the SANFL in general is not great at the moment.
The better.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, my that's my thing now is like watching going forward is like how much the coaching staff places stock on such great performances in a game like this versus the guys that are on the outer that, Jace Burgoyne will had on best of field a few weeks ago.
Yeah.
Jordan Sweet and Dante Vicentini is an interesting one because I think Vicentini's really put his name up there. And as you touched on as we were reviewing as well, what that does when he comes up against them, which I don't think, I think Lloyd Meeks, he's played less than 50 games.
He's a lump. He's a lump of a man.
I want to see Vicentini
46 hitouts last week.
Yeah.
Lloyd Meeks against Rowan Marshall.
But I think that's his like best career game, or is it season?
Wow, there must have been a lot of stoppages because Marshall had 35 hitouts himself.
Yeah, and that could have just been the style of game it was. It's and especially with Jordan Sweet being the inexperienced player himself as well. It's not like you're sitting there going, "We've got an experienced guy." It's not like it's Ivan Soldo's coming back in, and it's not to be derogatory to Jordan Sweet. I'm just going, maybe based on what Vicentini did, you give him the nod, just to give him a go.
I actually think Sweet will come back in. I think Vicentini will be unlucky.
Just based on seniority.
Thanks,
yeah. And
Sweet's just got that little extra bit of size to him, but equally he has a decent level of athleticism as well. So if it wasn't for COVID, he wouldn't have found himself out. And I just have
a feeling and he probably has a decent game against Geelong too. Like that's the thing is like we as you're kind of alluding to, is it's like it's recency bias, and the fact that because I've got
it's a shame, of course,
because I've got like the Looney Tunes
goes that way.
I've got like the Looney Tunes like Bugs Bunny Love Hearts in my eyes because Vicentini played such a good game at Kardinia Park when we're so desperate for a win. So Vicentini's one. Jace Burgoyne, if he's fit, again, like you said, it's probably going to be a case of Josh Sin, thank you, but Jace Burgoyne's already probably stepped himself above, and then positional needs and whatever, how those magnets move. Again, you've talked about Jackson Mead as well, breakout game. That's what I'm watching this week. Is like I'm really interested to see, particularly going to a game against a team that we on paper should win. And as you alluded to, it's making that on paper attitude translate to the on field, because we saw last week that we can take an attitude into a game and really apply it. But then the selection around that as well. While we go into Hawthorn and go, okay, maybe we can relax a little bit, there's a lot of questions, just those, not the major ones, but just lots of fun questions about how we balance this side as we enter this mid part of the year. It's really
what the attitude looks like.
Yeah, attitude, application.
Because like the Darcy Fogarty, Tom Hawkins thing, it's a bit more broad on in this regard, because Hawthorn are a team that are in 15th position.
Yeah.
Continue their bad season. Make sure of it. Not bad season, like they've had some highlights, but you know what I mean.
They're aware about where they probably expect to be, and they're getting some wins, but they're at the point that they want to try and take a scalp, and that we could be that scalp. I want my scalps.
I love scalping Nazis. What was I going to say? Oh, right. What was that? What? There was one of the footy shows, and they were showing the ladder and who everyone. I think it was First Crap actually. Who everyone was playing in this round, and I think we've just come off the back of the top 8 all playing against each other. But I think most of the top 8 now has games that they should be winning, except I think Carlton plays Sydney.
Oh, that'll be one I might sit up and watch.
That's the only one where we could possibly get some separation from someone around where we are. So again, like where everyone else around us and above us probably are going to win. It just means like it's more like it's important that we just
you need to keep pace because that Geelong win has actually given us that we've kept pace rather than because we were you know, let's be honest, we were expecting
away from fourth or something.
We were expecting to fall back into the pack even more based on our expectations. But now we're giving ourselves a chance to stay up and be right in the mix of those teams that are touching top 4. These are the kind of weeks that you need to tread water, so to speak. But actually, you know, obviously you want to be better than treading, but you just need to get the result.
Absolutely.
And then hopefully do it in a classy fashion that a little bit of a percentage boost would be handy. So a 10 goal win, just run of the. I'd be happy with a 10 goal. Like obviously, fucking if we could do what we did in the first half against them last year and then keep that going, fuck yeah, go for it. But
instead of
coming back. Not that I had too much problem. People were. That was one of the funnier results last year is how many people were complaining afterwards. Which I understood to a certain extent because I wanted
we put the queue in the rack, but people complaining that we put the queue in the rack are also complaining because we burnt out players by the end of the year. So
exactly, yeah, you kind of got to have a roundabout view of what's going on and not contradict yourself constantly. Yeah. But
which happens.
Which I will be guilty of at times too. I'm sure I'll get called out for it at some point. But overall, reasonably confident going into this week. I'd be looking at. I always try to go at what I'd be happy with and then knock a couple of goals off. So
I said 2 goals a quarter.
Yeah.
So 8 goal win. But look,
that's pretty weird because I thought 2.5.
If it's a 6 goal win, but we're keeping their score very low. Again, that helps. That still helps percentage. Don't want it to be a slog. I'm probably under 6 goals. I'm probably getting in the range of disappointed. Just where both teams are. And if we're that's probably a bonus.
Yeah, if we're like 15 goal 6 or more realistic. No, after last week, I was going to say 14 goals 12 maybe instead.
That's close to 100. 15 goals 6.
15-6 is 96. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've always like my weird brain. I've always known 15 goals is 90 points. So I sit there and go, if we go 15 goals, 15-6, 96 to 9-6, 60, like that, like you winning by 6 goals, you kept them reasonably low, you've kicked at a reasonable pace, and it's probably just been
given a few on the fast break out the back.
Yeah, just classic Port footy. But you've ultimately won by a reasonable margin while not giving them, like a 80, 90 point score. So that's what you're kind of saying. Yeah. But yeah, no, I overall, I think
Arvo.
Interesting time slot too. But you going to the game?
I am. I'm taking my daughter for the first time this year too. Nice afternoon game. So
fuck yeah,
should be fun. She'll keep me level headed. It was one of the good things about taking her a handful of times last year is it kind of helps to keep simmered down rather than exploding at umpires for ridiculous calls and whatnot. So should be fun.
What were her first words? Like yellow maggot or
no. Yeah. I'll keep it to myself.
No.
She'll learn a few things. Yeah, she's a bit more interactive now. So really got to be sensible.
It'll be a good test for you. But hey, hopefully it's a game that doesn't require you to have to be any form of tense. Absolutely. You can just sit there and be like, this is football. This is great. We love this. Look at us beat the shit out of Hawthorn. I'm sorry, I meant beat the crap out of Hawthorn. I mean, sorry, beat the poop out of Hawthorn. I would be.
We want goals.
Yeah. Anyway, that was a really, really, really fun review to do. Surprising, as I said, off the lead off to do it, but it shows what this Port Adelaide side is capable of when we put it all together. Thank you for listening as always. Keep an eye on the socials for posts about merch stuff coming up. I'm still working on it. Me and Jamie are talking about a few things, and I'm working on a few other things. Patreon coming
Keep voting
soon.
for the awards.
Yeah, keep voting for the awards is the main thing as well. Like, we love the interaction. That's what helps us out and keeps us energized about it. And we love all the interactions about it as well. I meant to make a note. I meant to make a note earlier when I talk about Vicentini. I completely forgot. But my mate Steve on the Facebook, who comments often, I know him as well. I've known him for a long time personally, so that's why he's on there a lot. But his note about Vicentini and how he was talking in an Italian accent for 25 minutes after the game and gesticulating wildly. And I was just like, and it just made me think of the Sopranos meme where it's just like inarticulate Italian noises. So yeah, love all the interactions from everyone on there. There's a lot of comments about.
Well, hey, if you don't like something, comment that too.
Yeah, I enjoy that.
Whatever it is. Yeah. If you're doing something good.
As long as you're constructive about it. If you're a dick, I'm going to be a dick back. But if you're constructive, we have the right to clap back. Yeah, but we do have a lot of good interactions and discussions with people who we're not exactly agreeing with. But if you're doing it constructively, it's always a fun conversation. So, yeah, we love all of that. So that's about it. Fucking Kardinia pair winning down at Kardinia Park.
Yeah. Let's keep it going.
Kardinia fucking pair. We're winning this weekend.
Go Port. Thanks, Dave.
Cheers.